Now let me go pull out the chat. I swear I'm such an amateur at this. It's ridiculous.
Well, you got to learn somehow.
Okay.
The only way to learn is to do.
Okay.
Lance was an Elena player for many years, so
This is
Yeah,
true.
that's where I got all my hands-on knowledge. That's the only way to learn.
you learn through failure, and then you found Chun.
Yeah, all roads lead there eventually.
Not for me.
I tried. I could.
Yeah, I don't think
I
Chun's
can't
the
play her.
character for
Can't
me.
play her.
Yeah.
And I say it's because she's boring. She's actually very exciting. It's great to win.
Yeah, no, winning's
But
great.
it's super fun, but the problem is she requires a lot of focus. Like, do you find yourself leaning in when you play her? Like, you really got to like look at the screen hard. Because with Urian, I can play with my eyes closed. It's just like you don't have to do any like real mental work. With Chun, looking for that confirm repeatedly and like checking tiny spaces for car throws, it's a lot of mental energy.
Yeah, it's
Lance always leans forward when he plays. If you watch him, like he'll get serious and like dip forward.
right. If I do that, it's unconscious. But yeah, I don't know. I think she's like a precise character, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
like
that's a good way of
the
putting it.
details matter, but like when you get the details down, she's really good. I guess that's basically it.
Yeah, I just
Do you think you
I'm not used to having
do
to
you
play
think you've maxed
footsies.
out? Yeah, I don't like to play footsies. Lance, do you think you've maxed out? Like, do you think you could theoretically get much better at the character, or are you kind of like at your skill ceiling or relatively close?
I don't know. That's a question of like how much more effort will I put into my life, which is probably minimal. So
Yeah.
I'm probably as good as I will be in general. And for the last couple of years, I've kind of like gone down a lot of side paths, right? Like I've spent the last 2 years like playing the cast. Not like when I play on Fight Kid, I rarely play Chun-Li. I
Yeah.
played Chun-Li and Jazzy last year because I felt like okay, that's what's expected, right? Like that's your main character.
You were
Uh,
talking about playing Yang in the build-up,
yeah.
and then
But
cowardice took over at the last minute. You look in the mirror and you go, "Actually, I'm a coward."
and who did I? So who did I? So I lost to the two Makotos, Mami and Neovon, and then I beat Juan and uh, oh Flannel Jack. Oh Flannel Jack. What a guy.
You went two and you went
Two
two
and
and
two.
two.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder if my Yang results would have been identical. So like might as well have picked him.
You maybe would have
I
got some
think your
more
Yang is
fans
very
too.
strong.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah, I
little
think.
more cheers from the crowd.
Yeah, nobody
You have
wants to see Chun win.
a huge group of Yang fanboys out there in America.
Mhm.
There sure are. There's more.
Got to be the most underplayed high tier character in the country.
Yeah, I think we are looking at co-op like co-op character selection, and Yang is the least played of like the strong characters, right?
That's interesting, even in Japan.
Yeah, like Urian's really like there's a lot of Urian players.
Yeah.
Which
Urian's
is
low tier.
yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
Well,
I don't like how over the last like 5 years, Urian has been getting more and more press. People are like, "Oh, he's actually a secret top tier." It's like, no, he's definitely not.
Yeah.
He's right there with Remy.
Yeah, that sounds
Sure,
about right.
sure,
That
sure.
checks out.
Roughly Remy tier. No, he's probably like the sixth best, seventh best character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Yang is like he's young without the bullshit. So like, and he dies fast, right? Like that's the biggest thing. Like it's hard to play defense with them, and he dies really quickly, and then you don't have Ganajin to fall back on. So it's like it's kind of a tough character to win with in that regards, where it's just like, all right, I'll just play Yun instead. Like, if all else is fails and everything's getting fucked up, like just activate. Fine, I'm back in there. But like Yang, you got to kind of really
He doesn't have that.
yeah that and the that tool to make that comeback factor. You really have to make some really hard reads to win, and he's really momentum based too. Like you can't really just like
You have
chill
to
like
be
you
a
can with
very
Yun.
good player. You have to have a deep understanding of the mechanics of the game, and I think you have to understand frame traps.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to study your character Yang and expect your opponent to not know as much. And most Americans, myself included, I mean, I've of course played Nika countless times, and I've played strong Yangs, but I don't have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that character. And I think the vast majority of American players struggle with that kind of lack of knowledge when it comes to characters like Ibuki, I think Yang is in that mix. Maybe Necro. That's always been the struggle of Western Third Strike, is this kind of hyper focus on top tiers. We all know how to fight against Chun, and not even really, not like top Japanese Chun,
sure.
but we all understand like the basics of a Chun, Ken, Yun. Most Americans don't understand at all.
Yeah.
What characters do we understand how to fight? That's the real question. Ken?
I think it's really just Ken. Yeah,
Yeah.
it might only be Ken.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Ken is the American character for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think when people start the game, it's like he's probably the easiest to get into Third Strike with. So like everyone kind of picks up Ken first just to learn the mechanics, basics. Then eventually they branch out to other characters. Yeah, I played Ryu first because I was even lazier than that. Like I can do low 40x fireball. Like I know how to do that. That's easy. But I think a lot of people start with Ken just because it's like easy. Just learn the mechanics that way. He's pretty forgiving in that regards, and he's cool. Yeah, like his combos are satisfying. His buttons are good. And then eventually they branch out into something else. So
I played Ken for like maybe 3 years, just with buddies in my town, and then online Xbox 15th anniversary collection. And I remember watching the Daigo parry, and that was kind of the first reason why I picked up the game. Me and my friend saw it, and we had Sega Dreamcast discs burned, and we played the Dreamcast version. And Ken was just the character that I was getting the most wins with. And I remember even at that time, not being a fighting game player, looking up like in 2005, 2006, with no knowledge of the FGC at all, like who are the best characters in Street Fighter 3? And it was Yun.
yeah.
It was Yun at the time was what was coming up all over the place. And we had figured out, me and my friend, that Yun was the best because the dash punch was totally unstoppable.
Yeah.
That if you just did the dash punch at each other, like that's an aspect of modern fighting games, whether it be Street Fighter 6 or even Third Strike on Fightcade, that is really lost on the new generation, is they will never have to live in a dark age.
Yeah.
And like I started playing, I wasn't even in the dark ages. I was in sort of like the early Renaissance period of like the internet's available. But these guys like a John Choi or a Tomo Ohira, Street Fighter 2 type guy, 1992, that word of mouth knowledge, all of that is gone now. Like I have made personally over 100 hours of Urian videos.
Yeah.
I've made,
the Bible's out there.
300-page book. Like and if you want to play Urian, you just can go and, I don't have all the information, but I can give you a damn good starting place. When I was starting out, there was a guy named Slim X.
Yeah.
You definitely remember Slim X.
I remember Slim X.
I remember seeing the videos, yeah.
So Slim X combo videos were absolutely incredible, but he also had written a Urian guide. And it was like Tyrant Slaughter or Temporal Thunder Urian guide. And I was reading it when I was making my guide. I was trying to find all the different guides to get a sense of like what had people written. And it was just unbelievable, like the complete lack of information that was out there. And these kids now, they can, you hop on YouTube, you have an endless database of the best players in the world. Trying to find good match footage. I was talking to Arturo Sanchez, and he was telling me that he used to send out in the mail to Japan to get VHS tapes of Third Strike.
Oh, that's sick.
There was a time where they were after the arcade, they all went back to a guy's house and they're watching the VHS, and the Kara Demon.
Yeah.
I think it was Jiro, the blue Goki player, did a Kara Demon, and they're watching on the grainy VHS, being like, "How the fuck do you? Yeah. What is? I don't know." And like you have to wait. I guess they could have pulled out the PS2 or whatever and tried to do it, but that era of fighting games is totally gone, and it's actually a big reason why like a modern Street Fighter 6 doesn't appeal to me that much. Is there's no mystery or mystique. Like everything is kind of like figured out pretty quickly. There's optimizations and things like that. But with Twitter, there's no like there's nothing to dig up and really find. I like that about Third Strike, because there's always something new to find, really.
Well, I still see new stuff all the time.
It might be useless.
Yeah, I still see new stuff all the time, which is crazy, because, I've been watching the game for God knows how long now. But we were talking to Nika about this on the last podcast, where it was like, if someone got into Third Strike today, like, and I've seen it, like, with, like, Cho, a local young player. He's only been playing a few years. When they see the game, it's like, okay, Daipon, that's what I need to do this. These resets, that's what I need to do to do this. So when they're learning the character, they're learning it at that level. Like, this is common. Whereas, like, back in, like, 2002, 2003, unheard of. And if you did see it, it was, like, combo video stuff. Like, not practical, don't do it in a match, like, none of that stuff. But now when I watch it, it's like, oh, that's what I need to do to play the character properly. That's what I'm going to learn. And they just start from there, so.
And I think, so if you had asked me, like, a few years ago what my perspective on that was, I would have said, you should learn, and I think this was just the bias of my own experience, you should learn the way I learned, which was like learn the length of your moves, figure out how far a crouch medium kick is, like try to learn fundamentals. But these kids, I mean, I'm sure both of you are aware of Resolve, probably the I don't know. Top
He's in the chat now.
right now.
Shout out to Resolve.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. He blows my mind on a daily basis. But I remember when I first heard of him. So I have the Urian server. It's got like 120 Urians. It's a really super fun place. And Resolve showed up one day, and he was a PS4. He was a PS4 Urian. And I did this thing for a while. I definitely don't do it anymore. Where I would review people's matches, and I would watch it, and I would make a YouTube commentary of it. I would keep it private, just so it wouldn't, people wouldn't. I could say whatever the fuck I want. It was amazing. And I watched his footage, and he was a strong player. But he was kind of garbage at the same time. It was like PS4. But what he did, and this is understandable because he'd only been playing for about 6 months or a year. He was very good, but still like there was something super lacking. But then he found this execution, and he figured out like I'm so unbelievably good at hitting these extremely difficult triple tackle headbutts, unblockable setups that like I literally can't do. I mean, I watch his videos regularly. I'm like, I can't do that. And he reverse engineered the game in so many ways, where it's like he went to the hardest shit. Yeah, figured that out, and then everything else just kind of like naturally fell in order. Or like I was building the house from the foundation up, and he's built it backwards. And I think it took me 15 years to get to the level where I would feel like I'm as good as Resolve. Like he's like, I don't know, 3-4 years in. The speed of growth, it has to come from a different strategy in terms of learning. Of course, there's way more information, and like I didn't have the access to all of the data that he has when he first started, but like I think he like just did it differently. And like B-Tran is somewhat similar to that. Like B-Tran would always find, I hope everybody knows B-Tran. I know you guys do, but like for the people out there, B-Tran is just a video game savant, but he would be able to pick up like a V-Sav, and he would immediately do like the hardest Sako combo, like BB Hood crazy loops and all this stuff. And it's for some reason, once you dial in the hardest stuff through like osmosis or something, you just kind of naturally pick up the easier stuff. And it's totally different than I've learned, and I think it might actually be the way to do it. The only issue with it is people get hyper focused on the hard stuff, and they think that's the ticket to winning. Resolve was smart, and he recognized that there is a basis in neutral, there is fundamentals, there is defense. He didn't get drunk on the combos the way a lot of people do. Yeah. But he still he learned them, and he pushed his hands and his mind to a place where the other stuff just sort of fell in a row. He's also, I think, just sort of a rare talent. I don't think that a lot of people
his defense is incredible, which I think is like hard for newer players, where it's like I can't hit this fucking guy. Like I can't hit this guy. And then his execution is so good that it's like, okay, when he does hit me, like that could be the round easily, like because he's been building meter the whole time, and then I get touched once and it's round over. But like I can't open him up, so yeah, Resolve sick.
It's the patience that stands out to me. I mean, I've watched every Urian video on the internet. I really think, and when I watch him play, there's a calmness in situations that he should not be calm. I'm like, this is a very chaotic moment, and you can just see the way that he's moving. It's like he's not freaking out. It's most evident in the Tenren matchups. So, like, Tenren destroys me. I mean, I don't play anymore, but Tenren, whenever we played, always destroyed me. And Resolve was the first Urian that I saw who was able to, like, really... I mean, Cruz as well. Cruz was able to hold his own. But Resolve was able to compete with Tenren by actually staying in the pocket with him and not freaking out and hitting a dumb button or freaking out and trying to guess a parry. I just have the highest admiration for that style of play because I'm a huge Kuroda fanboy, and like Kuroda, if you watch the old videos, people they'll poo-poo it and they'll say like, oh well, it's 20 years old and it's just watch the way that he survives. He cannot be hit. That's Lance. I think it was you who told me in Japan they have this idea that you should play to not be hit rather than play to hit. Like you should be evasive first in a game like Third Strike, which I believe is a fundamentally defensive game. And it gets misconstrued because you watch Memora highlights and you're like, oh, this is like a fast pace. But I think it is at its core a defensively focused game. And I feel like America has really missed the boat on that. And guys like Resolve definitely didn't. And like I also don't like if you watch my Jazzy run, I blocked everything. Like that's all I did was block. And with a character like Urian, he's got so much health. He's like just a little bit less than Hugo. If you can just not be hit and have a character like a Urian or a Yun or a Chun, I mean, all three of our characters, if you can't hit me, I'm going to hit you at some point and you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we kind of already got into it. Should we go ahead and get this started?
Yeah, we talked in a little bit. Here, do our official intro.
So,
introduce our guests.
So, welcome to episode 2 of the podcast, the Lance and Ray podcast. I am your host with my my assistant here, Lance, as you can see here. Today we got on Jazzy, I'm going to say American champion, Jazzy 3 American champion.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I knew you were a good guy, man. I knew it. I like you so much. This is a good time to be on this podcast. I appreciate that because you know what? It's the fucking truth. Thank you so much.
I've always made the analogy that it's like playing Super Turbo, right? You got to get to the end. You beat M Bison. Now you get to Goki afterward, but like if you don't beat Goki, you still win, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
I still beat Bison, and the fact of the matter is, Issei Suzuki is not a human.
Big facts.
Issei Suzuki was born in the Andromeda galaxy. He is not a man in the same way that he is a god.
Yeah.
Like, there are gods. We use the word God regularly. Like, oh, this guy's a god, this guy. There is a level, and Lance, you know it way better than both of us. But there's a level of Third Strike where the only word to describe it is God level.
Yeah.
And I am not a god. Like, I'm a very strong player. And in the United States, like, I'm fucking good. I am not a god. Issei Suzuki is a god.
You're like Hercules, dude. Hercules, demigod, right? So
I was laughing during that grand finals.
Yeah.
And people thought I wasn't crying. It was like I was laughing because like it's absurd to think that I'm going to defeat this man. And it wasn't even like, oh, boo-hoo. Like I had already won. Like in my mind, like, I wanted to win. I really wanted to win. And I didn't go in there being like, I'm not going to beat Issei. I came in with the same mindset I had to every other opponent, which was basically, fuck you, you can't beat me. And with Issei, it was like, oh shit, this is not good. I was like, he can absolutely beat me. He's crushing me right now. Like I don't have the level to compete with this. Nothing but respect for Issei. I wish that he did not come that year, and I had a big shiny belt to show everybody. But I'm sure it's somewhere in a storage closet in Tokyo right now. He doesn't give a fuck about it.
the people's champ, though. The people's champ, more important, right?
People's champ.
That being said, I love Issei's gameplay. Like Issei, so like as a
so creative.
So as a young player, like when I watch Issei, like when I first watched him, I was like, man, he's not doing anything crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like this looks, I could do that. And then when I played him, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. This sucks. Like this is way too hard. So
I think Ray, you're aware of the fact that I was a Yun main for like 6, 7, 8 years. So I played Black Yun, and I played Black Yun
Best
because
color?
of Issei.
Yeah.
And do you play Black Yun?
Yep.
You play Black Yun. So I play it because of Issei. Back in like 2008, 2009, trying to find Yun tech, there was like 2 routes you could go. You could go Issei, Nito, or you could go like Sho, or Boss as well. You could go like Sho, Yakun, and
Ushi.
like there was like Tackle, Ushi. Yeah, Ushi's got like. But there was like the basic, refined, solid Nito Issei style. And there was the hyper optimal Sho, Yakun, kind of. Even Kuroda was doing Kara Palms in his DVD.
Yeah.
So like, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I'm like, I would love to be able to do all of this crazy stuff, but I'm playing on pad. At the time, I was a pad player, and I think people can do it. I played pad for like nine years, but I couldn't do it, and it was driving me crazy. But then I found a guy named Issei Suzuki. And I picked that black color, and I did what I could to emulate his style. And Lance played me all the time back then, and I did a very poor job of emulating that style because I watched his gameplay and thought that what he was doing was a roundhouse dive kick 1, 2, 3 repeatedly. I think there was a little bit more nuance to the gameplay than that.
Yeah,
Ray's familiar with that gameplay style as well.
I'm big familiar with that gameplay right there. That's the Ray move still.
Very solid strategy, dude. It destroys most people.
Oh man,
I feel bad for the new players because. I mean, maybe they're out there, but there aren't too many Third Strike players these days who absolutely stink. Pretty much everybody is like okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Lance and I grew up at a time playing on Xbox 360 where 80% of the people just started, just started. They were so bad, and it was so much fun. Like you could just do whatever you wanted. You thought you were so sick. These days, you actually have to like know how to play to even win any games.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were talking about, I think, before the podcast started, is like how fast people can get into the game because the information. But not only that, like, you know, when I played in high school, I lived out in the sticks, so I didn't even have anyone to play. So I would just like watch videos, try to do the combos, and that was it. I'd actually get to play a human being like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, if that. But now it's like you have instant access to the best players in the country every day. You can log on a Fightcade and play the best player. You can play the Jazzy champ right now if you want to. Like, you can play Kang, log on. I'm sure he's on Fightcade right now.
He would love to play you. He'll be playing poker on 7 other screens.
But
you know, that's actually him at his highest level. You don't want him on a cab focus. He's terrible.
go to the poker table.
When he's got 6 different poker games going, he is a monster.
But
that's really interesting to think about, right? Is like the evolution of gameplay in America and also the evolution of what was available as options for playing and studying. Right, because you talk to people who have been around, you know, way longer than me, and they'll talk about like, oh yeah, like in the old days, like I would have to like, someone would have a VHS copy of a tournament from Japan, and like that's where we learned all of our stuff. And right, you know, it was very local. It's like there was a couple of big cities. If you like lived in like L.A. or Austin or New York, then like you might have access to this stuff. But for the most part, you didn't. There was no online play.
Nope.
And then I believe starts like we were talking to Nika about this, like you know. Online play starts with like Chilera and what else is there? There's like I think like Supercade is a thing. The original Xbox, which is where I think it's where you started. Yeah, and still at that point, the majority of people are not. You know, like most people can't play Third Strike online. So OE and I think is where like a lot of us like first got to like play Third Strike against other humans on the internet
and have a decent game too, right?
That was 2000. Well, OE's netcode is solid.
Yeah.
So that was 2011. I had played for 6 years before that point. So when I went into OE, I had a huge leg up on the vast majority of the competition. But once in a while, I'd run into a guy like a Nika or a Kang who had access to an offline scene, and the level was, I mean, just massive. Sure. The jump was so big. And if you go to like the, you know, Chinatown Fair, you go to Family Fun Arcade back in the day, people were traveling to Japan and they were coming back, and it was like an oral history of like, you know, this guy told me this. And, you know, even when MOV came to Sunroute Cup in like, I think it was 2010, you know, Nika's sitting next to him with like a notepad, watching him, recording him, probably on like a handy cam or something, you know, and that information was disseminated outward, but it never got to the masses. Yeah. Like now it's available. You can absolutely go and figure out how many frames of, you know, invulnerability you have on Wake Up, and, you know, guard jumps and all these different, you know, optimal combos and loops. But there was a time, even in my 17 years of playing, and the game is longer, you know, older than that, there was a time where if you didn't know, you were not going to learn unless you met somebody who had the sacred knowledge, and you needed to be initiated. It was almost like a cult. Like you needed to be part of the cool kid club in one of the local scenes. Like I went to Family Fun Arcade the week that it was closing. I think it closed in like 2012. I went out there and I played very briefly on one of the American style cabs. So there was 6 head-to-head American style cabs, and there was one player there. And I don't know who it was, but he was a very strong Chun-Li player. And he was taking me around the arcade and showing me they had 6 head-to-head Americans, and they had 1 head-to-head Japanese, and I think it was probably Astro City or something. And he was telling me, he's like, that's the big boy cab. And he's like, basically, if you weren't 5-star, if you weren't Pyro, if you weren't Amir, if you weren't part of the cool kid club, you couldn't play on that setup. And like that was the setup that had the legitimate ball top sticks. Like we were playing in America at Chinatown Fair when I first went to Chinatown Fair in like, I don't know, 2008, 2009. They were playing on bat tops. Like we weren't even playing on the right equipment for a long time. And if you were like one of the few players who was going to SBO, like KO Fiend and Justin Wong, like you were being just allowed to get all this secret information, and then you would come back and give it to your buddies, and you would be a lot better than everybody else. But that's not the world anymore. And I think the only thing that separates somebody like me with 17 years of experience and someone like Resolve with like 4 years of experience. It's just that I have more hours in the game than him.
Yeah.
Like, he has the same amount of information, and that's why he's at my level or above it. Like, and it's wonderful that the world has kind of opened up. But as a former elitist who had all the information, it sucks. There was a time where like you didn't know shit and I did, and I could hit you with it all day. It's over now. That's why I quit.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. You know, your competitive advantage ended,
Yeah.
and okay, this is the best it's ever going to be.
The writing's on the wall, dude. The kids are coming and they're all armed.
Well, not only that, but like being able to get the reps in, right? Like that's what you were talking about earlier. Like getting not only to know the knowledge, but to get to like practice it and apply it in a real situation. So when I started, I would like watch videos and I didn't understand. I'd be like, "Oh, do this combo," but like when I actually like played someone good, I'm like, "Oh, they won't let me." Like I'm trying to do the stuff I've seen in the videos, but it's not working. But I don't understand why. Like so, just having instant access where you can like watch a video, understand, see a situation, and then actually try to apply it in like real gameplay is massive. Whereas like that didn't used to happen back then. You'd write it down or figure it out, and then okay, when next time I go to the arcade or next time I get to play against someone, I may get to try it out. You may get see that situation a couple of times. But now it's like I have Fightcade, I have an offline scene, I can go immediately try these situations out and see how it goes. So just different times,
You have
different
direct
times.
access. You have direct access to players who would likely know the answer. And I think one of the most important things, if you genuinely want to get better at Third Strike, which I don't really recommend, get a job, go to college. Not that great.
Yeah.
Really not worth it. But if you do want to do it, the best thing that you can do is ask questions. The reason that I was able to get strong in a relatively short period of time, even with a bunch of experience, because I wasn't strong at 10, 11 years of experience. It really wasn't until I became an offline player, I moved to New York City. I got, I became friends with really, really good players who had this information that came from Japan. And, I was kind of initiated into that cult and I was given the information. And I had Daisuke help me out tremendously, coming directly from Japan, being able to read Japanese. I asked questions. That's all I did. How do you do that? Why did you do that? What was that for? Like, what do you think this matchup is? What do you think the strategy is? Like, one of the most important moments in my Third Strike career, if you want to call it that, is when Daisuke and I were training, and he looked at me, and God, this hurt me so badly. He goes, "You have no strategy." Like, it offended me deeply because in my mind, I was like, "What are you talking about? I don't have any strategy." Like, and he's like, "Explain to me what you're trying to do." And the simple fact of the matter is I was just trying to hit him.
Yeah.
Like, I was just trying to hit him. And I couldn't hit him, and he could hit me. And, like, I didn't realize, and that's why, like, if you look, I wrote this Urian guide, Urian versus the World, and it's like 300 fucking pages or something insane. But it's a matchup guide. It's a strategy guide. It's not a combo guide. I have all those videos, but it's a strategy guide. And the reason is because of that quote from Daisuke, "You have no strategy." I became hyper fixated on a strategy. But I have this opponent versus me. I need to know what my strongest options are, what his strongest options are. I need to know what's part of the screen I want to be on. I need to know, of course, all my combos. I need to know what buttons are the best. I need to know what buttons are the worst. I need to know, like, in the air, is he stronger than me? Everything needs to be mapped out. And with a character like Urian, there's a very clear-cut strategy. Get him to the corner, activate Aegis, hit a launcher, hit a mid-screen unblockable. Like, I'm fortunate enough to have a pretty one-dimensional character with, a character like Ken. You have to be kind of more free-flowing and dynamic to be able to like implement a strategy. But I had never focused on picking a game plan going into the match. I'm fighting a Necro. These are the moves that are most effective against Necro. These are all the combos that I use. This is where I want to be on screen. This is where I don't want to be. Like, this is where I'm most vulnerable. All of that coming into it with a set strategy, my confidence was so much higher because I wasn't figuring it out as I was going. I was trying to implement a clear-cut strategy. And, the higher level than that is when that strategy doesn't work, you have a backup strategy and a backup strategy. And, like, when you play against a guy like Issei, I mean, Issei, when we've played hundreds of games together, and I had the opportunity to play him one-on-one for multiple hours on 2 different occasions. And, like, early in our sets, I would hit him with some of my shit because I got some cute shit, and, like, he either hadn't seen it or didn't expect it. But we played for hours, and I didn't hit him with that shit a little bit later in the set. And then I was getting baited, and he knew that was coming. I was being punished for that shit. So, like, the best players are the ones who not only have the strategy, but have the ability to adapt on the fly and implement strategies that are being built in the moment. And like, I actually don't believe that in my brain, I have that innate ability to be able to be so present in the fight that I can switch gears consciously or unconsciously on a level that can compete with another person trying to put their number one strategy in place. Like, that's where this game just becomes so much fun when you're trying to like fight each other's minds. But you'll run into people like an Issei or the top American players too, where it's like, oh, like your brain's just a little bit better than mine, and I'm not going to be able to beat you. And then I hit a launcher and I win the round, and I'm actually pretty fucking sick.
So you mentioned earlier about having access to those scenes and being able to get information from them. You've been around for a long time now. How do you feel the scenes compare to back then, like being willing to share the information versus now?
So I was not part of the New York scene until like 17. I had visited the New York scene as a totally anonymous online player who played pad, but was like at Chinatown Fair, just a kid with long hair, coming in with an ego, like I'm going to beat everyone. I never knew the meetup times. I never knew when the good players were going to be there. I would just show up on like a random Friday, and I would just put a quarter into the cab, and I would win some and I'd lose some. But I can't speak to how it was on a personal level, but I can tell you the stories from the guys. New York is a notoriously rough place, like Third Strike or otherwise. It's a pretty, grimy environment. And a lot of the people who play at arcades, specifically Chinatown Fair, kind of grew up in poverty or grew up in kind of unstable environments. And the arcade was their home base. And a lot of those guys are just tough dudes. And I remember hearing stories, from Arturo Sanchez, who's sort of like the New York historian of, physical fights, knives being pulled out, major altercations where people are being like, attacked for whether it be throwing repeatedly or cheap tactics or whatever. And I would have to imagine that at that time there was the good players. There was like Eddie Lee. I imagine a lot of the new players don't know of Eddie Lee, but Eddie Lee was like the top New York City player before Justin Wong in Third Strike. He was like a Chun-Li Ibuki player. And I would have to assume that Eddie had his buddies, and Eddie and his buddies had all the information, and there would be a new player. And I can speak to this personally, being the new guy showing up at an arcade, nobody knows me, and I sit down to play against the top player, and, GG's. He's not going to sit down at the, pull up the stool next to me and tell me, kid, what you probably should have done, it's GG's, get off, my buddy's up next. I actually want to play someone who's good. So, like, that mentality has stayed consistent in New York, but from what I gather in the old days, like, if you weren't in, you were never getting in. And it's the same thing that you see, like, in any breakdown of human society. It's like, are you good? No, then you're shit. Like, get out of here. Like, we don't, and like that in fighting games, because it really is like a digital fight, like people's egos come into it. And like, I'm here to beat you. And that old idea of like, save that shit for nationals, that was a real part of American Third Strike. And I imagine American fighting games in general of like, I'm not giving you anything. Like, if I was smart, I would have never told anybody anything I knew about Urian. I would have just played Urian. And all these shitty Urians would have just been crushed by me. But I realized most of them, pretty much all of them were anyway. So it didn't really matter. But, I mean, they all were. The only Urians that beat me are people who don't play Urian. But, but I didn't do that. And I recognized pretty early on that the best way to learn is to teach. So what I did was I would figure something out, or I would learn something from a guy like Yuki Spencer, or a guy like Nikki KO, or a guy like Daisuke, or a guy like Frankie, or any of my mentors. And I wouldn't fully understand it, but a new player would come to me, and I would want to try to explain it to them in a way that would clarify it in my own mind. So something like a guard jump or whatever. I've learned guard jump like 6 times before I actually understood guard jump. Like frame data, throw and vulnerability, none of that stuff really, none of it resonated with me when I first learned it. But I taught it probably incorrectly to like 15 new players, and each time I understood it a little bit more. And a lot of what I was doing when I was writing the guides or making the YouTube videos, like for instance, like a Urian versus Hugo combo video, I would go into that video with a basic understanding of Urian versus Hugo combos, but I wouldn't know them all. So then it would require me to study literally every single Urian versus Hugo matchup on the internet. I would have to go into the lab, try to figure out my own stuff, try to optimize the stuff, and then I would have to record the combos, and I don't hit them on the first try. So now I'm labbing and practicing these combos repeatedly, and it's just getting drilled into my bones. And then I would send it out into the world, and then another player would be like, "Hey, have you tried this one?" I'm like, "Oh, wow, that one's sick too." So then the community aspect would be fed back into me. So like people give me credit for like making all these guides. It was at the core a very selfish endeavor. It was like I know that if I can create this like database of information and give it out to the world, they're going to give me back stuff I don't know. I don't know if I recognize this consciously. They're going to give me stuff back that I don't know, and I'm going to hone all of these skills, and I'm going to deeply understand the stuff that I'm teaching. So it ended up like the reason I got good on so many levels is because people taught me, and then I taught others, and that process just made me get it.
So that's what kind of drove you to make the videos? Because that was one of the big things I wanted to ask you. Is like,
Yeah.
what caused you to make those videos? Because like,
The reason
everyone I
made
know
them-
who picks up the game now, that picks up Urian, is just like, they'll share it to me like, oh, have you seen this or whatever? Like, look at these, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm familiar. So
So those videos, I don't remember exactly why I made them, but I think what kept me going is because they were super fun. I did stand-up comedy for like 5-6 years in the South, and then I moved to New York City with the intention of pursuing comedy. I quickly realized like I ain't got it. Like I'm pretty good. I was a pretty damn funny comedian, but it's not. It's like I'm a B rank, maybe low A rank on Fightcade. It's like, am I gonna go to SBO? And like if you're going to try to be a professional stand-up comedian, like you have to be very, very good, or you have to have like a specific niche that you can draw an audience from. And like I'm a white guy with long hair. It's tough. It was a tough gig, and I was funny, but there was always someone who was funnier than me, and I recognized like I wasn't going to be able to make it. And I remember I did the Boston Comedy Festival, and I got eliminated from it, and I realized like that's the last time I'm going to do stand-up. And it went probably 2-3 years. I was playing third strike, but it was without any sort of creative outlet. So when I found the videos, I decided. I mean, I made those videos for the memes. I didn't give a shit about the combos. It was like almost entirely just for the funny shit. And like if you look at my guides, there's just a bunch of stupid jokes in there. Like my first guide I wrote, which was called "You Are Not RX," which is a guide about how to play the basic bitch Urian. Because at that time, what I was seeing across the board with it when I was playing Yun or Urian is everybody was trying to emulate the top level players and failing miserably. And my philosophy at the time, and it still kind of is like, just learn how to play the game on a level where you can win, and then just start to win more and more and get better and better and better. Don't overcomplicate this stuff. And like a character like Urian or a character like Yun, we're talking about Issei, like very basic Yun.
yeah,
RX is a pretty complicated Urian, but there's Urians like, there's Pierre Urian, there's Rue Urian, like very simplistic. And then there's crazy Urians like RKF and RB. And I was trying to lead people away from the glitz and the glamour and the flash of the 100% combo and more towards like solid neutral game, solid understanding of how to abuse unblockables and abuse corner ages. So I wrote that first guide, but I really wrote it just because I wanted to write funny shit. And it just kind of took off, and I liked the feedback, and it was a fun creative thing to do. And once I had started making character specific combos, I had to do it for every single character. And then people were asking me like, well, how do you actually do it? Because a lot of it was just sort of like masturbation of like, look at all these sick combos I can do.
yeah.
And then people were like, how do you actually do them? And I'm like, oh, I guess I got to teach you how to do them too. That sucks. And then I had to make the Leaving Mongolia series where I had to show how to make all the combos. And then people were like, hey, I can do all these combos, but I'm not winning any games because like you were saying earlier, right? Like I can't actually get into a situation where I can land any of this shit. So then I had to write a guide on how to actually land a thing once in a while and like how to hold down back to block. So before you know it, it was basically like I would make a thing and then people were like, I like that, but, and then I have to make another thing to fill that hole. I like that, but, and before you know it, I had made all the things that I could possibly make. And I can confidently say there's nothing that I know about the character Urian that isn't somewhere in one of my resources. Like I'm not holding on to anything.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay. So we've kind of been we've gone over some key points of your Third Strike career. We talked about your content creation a little bit. We talked about you visiting New York and becoming part of their scene. But let's put it in order. I just want to hear your Third Strike life story from the beginning. Why did you start? Where did you start? How long did you play Yun? When and why did you switch to Urian? Just walk me through your Third Strike story from your point of view.
from day one. It's 2005. I'm standing in the basement of my buddy's house. We're very high on marijuana cigarettes, and
Okay.
he is on. I believe it was Kotaku, which I think was still around back then.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on. He's holding his laptop, and he goes, "Check this out!" And he presses play, and it's the Daigo Justin Wong parry. And we both, even to this day, I don't remember the last time I watched that video and didn't get chills. It's fucking sick. It holds up. It absolutely holds up. And the first time I saw it, blew my mind. One strange thing that a lot of people, I don't think I've ever spoken about publicly, is that my father, he was friends with a criminal when I was younger who gave him a Street Fighter arcade machine. And when I was between the ages of 4 and 10, there was a Street Fighter 2 arcade machine in my basement that I played 5 times. So he was like friends with this like guy who owned a car wash or something. I think he was like a criminal or something. And like my dad helped him out with something, and he's like, "Hey, you want this arcade machine? My car wash is closing." So they brought this arcade machine into my basement. So I had Street Fighter Champions Edition in my basement in an American style arcade with broken buttons and a broken, like nothing was good. And I was too short to reach it. And I really only played it like 5 or 6 times. I knew how to get the coin. So you'd have to open up the machine and hit the red button thing to get the coin. But I didn't know how to play. And I found it extremely frustrating. And it just sat there collecting dust until one day when I was like probably 11, I came home and it was gone. Because my father had given it to somebody else who said, like, I can get it out of here if you want. And at that point, I like was kind of annoyed because it was cool to have. But I didn't touch Street Fighter until 15th anniversary came out, right around the same time as the Daigo parry. And I was playing Super Turbo and I was playing Third Strike just with my friend. We did this thing called the Intergalactic Super Cup, where we would play 5 different fighting games and try to see who's the champion.
Oh, that's sick.
And whoever won 3 of the 5 games was the champion, and we would go back and forth. He was way better at some of the CVS 2 type games, and I was way better at Third Strike. And we bought the Bat Top 15th anniversary sticks, and I was a raging little kid. And I remember I was like probably 16, and I lost a game, and I pushed the stick like that, and the stick broke. And then I just picked up a pad, and I never played stick again, really, until 15 years later. Mm-hmm. So from there, I played online. I was totally an online player. I played 15th anniversary on the Xbox 360, backwards compatible to the Xbox. Every time I super jumped in that game, it would slow down. It would go to like 5 frames per second. And the super jump, it would go, and I thought that that's the way that the game was. I was like, oh, when you super jump, like everything slows because it gives you an opportunity to like really survey the, it's like sort of like a bullet time type thing. But it was just a terrible port of the game. So I played on that. I went to college. I brought my pad. I told everybody in the dorm, like, yo, I'm sick of this game, because I was playing on 15th anniversary and I was an S rank. So I don't know. I would imagine nobody really knows this except for the few who played. There was a ranking system, and it was different than Fightcade. It was all percentage based. So like if you had 50% wins, you were an A rank. If you were 55%, you were like A plus. If you were 60% or above, you were S rank. And if you were 65% or above, you were SS rank. So I was an S rank. And I was a Ken main, and I was winning at like just about 60% of my games. And I have an enormous ego, and it was like, I'm a fucking god. Like nobody can beat me except for Sandy Bags. And there was this guy, Sandy Bags, who's the greatest Hugo in the
probably
country.
Still on OU right now, by the way.
I love Big. Sure he is. I'm sure he is. I love Big Nasty, and I think Big Nasty has taken the character to unbelievable levels. But the damage that Sandy Bags has done to my soul, to my core, Big Nasty, there's not enough time left in my life for you to hurt me the way that man hurt me. But he will always be my king. Sandy Bags would destroy me. Sandy Bags had 35,000 games played in 2008, my freshman year of college, on Xbox 15th anniversary. 35,000 games. Go check your Fightcade stats. See how many games you've played. It ain't 35,000. It ain't 2008 right now either, buddy. Yeah. It's 2023. And he kept playing. He's played like that for years. So he would destroy me, but in my mind, he didn't exist. It's the same way that Issei doesn't exist. It's like, but he's Sandy Bags. Nobody eats Sandy Bags. Like, it's Issei. Nobody eats. My mind is always like rock solid if I'm the best. I always find rationalizations and excuses and justifications. So I keep thinking that I'm super sick. And I come back from college. I was going to Quinnipiac University in Connecticut. I come back from college, and I had heard through the Shoryuken forums, because I had joined the Shoryuken forum of, Chinatown Fair, and they have this arcade called CF, and everybody goes there, and that's where Justin Wong goes, and that's where all the best players goes. And at that time, I'm watching the FFA Ran Bats, and I'm watching this Dr. Sub-Zero podcast. I think it was called something else at the time. But what was it called, Lance? It was Third Strike Junkie? No, that's the other one.
No, there was a Dr. Sub-Zero podcast, and there was a Gutex podcast.
Yeah.
I think there was a Third Strike Junkies podcast. There was a lot of podcasts.
So I was watching the amazing Rockefeller Sub-Zero, who the Green Urian, the only man who's ever really taken Green Urian to a level where it's okay to play that color.
Best color. Color.
He was so funny, and his commentary was so great, and the level of play was super high. I mean, these guys back in 2008, 2009 at Family Fun Arcade in California were putting out some really solid footage. I mean, these dudes are legit. And I was watching them, and I was, I'm going to go to New York City. So I was living in New Jersey, and I asked my mom, can you take me to the train? I got on the train, and I had this big head of like, I'm going to the arcade, and I'm got a pocket full of quarters, and I'm only going to need one of them because like nobody's going to touch me. I got like at least 1,500 games played. I'm an S rank on 15th anniversary. Like, come and get this. Like, Justin who? Justin who? So I show up, and there's like 6 people there. None of them I recognize from any of the videos. It was just like a little Chinese guy, a bigger Chinese guy, a little Chinese guy, and a bigger Chinese guy. And they took turns banging over and over and over and over. And I had the moment, which pretty much nobody who started playing in the last 15 years will ever have this moment, and thank God you won't. I had the moment where I go, I don't have any quarters. And I had to walk to the machine.
Yeah, that walk of shame. Yeah.
Money and get the quarters and come back and put it on the machine and lose again and lose again. And I probably spent 30, because I was there all day, and I won very few, if any, games. Probably spent like $35-$40 in quarters, just losing repeatedly. And I got back on the train, and I was devastated. I mean, I was devastated the same way that I was after I lost every tournament I've ever lost. Like, it hurt me to my core, but I decided to keep playing. And at that point, I was a Ken main, now transitioning into Yun. I had discovered Yun was very, very cheap, and I really enjoy the process of being victorious in a fighting game. So I had picked Yun, and I just learned the basic Ganesian combos. And at that point in 2010 or so, like, unless you were a top player in a real offline scene, you had never played against the Yun. So I knew that there was no way you were going to stop my cross-up dive kicks. There was no way you were going to stop my, pressure with Ganesian, just basic pressure. And I knew that you were going to get very frustrated if I ever started juggling you, because you probably had never been juggled before, because you're playing on online edition or you're playing on 15th anniversary, and like you just don't have the experience. The first time somebody gets juggled by Yun, it's like, what? You can do that? This was at a time where like the vast majority of people who were playing had not watched Japanese footage. Like I was starting to watch footage and starting to really enjoy keeping up with watching Cooperation Cup, watching SBO. But I played Yun until OE came out, and I then became the #1 ranked Yun on the OE leaderboards, which for many years was my #1 achievement. Until you really get into the fine details of what that means, it just basically meant that I played the most games as Yun. Because the OE leaderboard was 100% experience-based. There was no skill aspect to it. Every time that you won a game, you got like 15 points. And I had just won the most games with Yun. And if you had looked at the win-loss ratio, there were absolutely other players who had a much stronger win-loss ratio. But I was dude so high, and I was the #1 ranked player in America, in the world, actually. So that was what was feeding my ego. It went from the S rank at 15th anniversary to now I'm the #1 ranked Yun, and I started to become genuinely okay. Like, I was fucking people up, truthfully. And then I ran into Lance, and Lance was playing in Alaska as Igloo Bob. And I remember the first time I ever played Lance, and he defeated me. And it still hurt. It still hurts to this day. It still hurts. 2011 probably. Connection. We always joke that there was a direct Wi-Fi Ethernet cord from Alaska to Florida, where I was living. At that point, drugs had ruined my life. I have 15 years sober. I'm a substance abuse counselor by trade. But I had been shipped down to Florida in 2010 to go to rehab, and I got sober and I moved out of the rehab and I was living in my own apartment and I got an HD TV because again, knowledge gaps. I wasn't aware of
Sure.
input lag. I didn't know that there was an optimal setup. I had never
Yeah.
heard of 120 hertz monitors. CRT was nothing more than the piece of shit that, was
Yeah.
in my parents' basement. Like there was not any value placed on the controller that I'm using. I always knew that playing pad meant that I was like not cool, but I was winning with it. And I thought this TV was nice. It was 720p.
Yeah.
It's like $400. Like this is a dope ass Sony TV. I didn't realize that every time I hit the button, it took a minute and a half for anything to happen on the screen. But
Yeah.
I learned how to play with that. Like I played in probably like 7 frames of lag or 8 frames of, crazy amounts of lag. And I was doing well. And OE starts to really take off where there's games all the time. And I'm in these lobbies with strong players. And, I'm starting to follow the local scenes. And Nika KO is like the king of New York. And he's putting out all these Third Strike videos. And, I've become, relatively friendly with him just online. I'd never spoken with him, but I would play his name was Papizi. And I would pop in there and play Papizi, and he would destroy me. And he would destroy me with any character. It didn't matter what character he played. He would just break me. And like the process of building the ego up and then getting it cut down, like that just happened repeatedly. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where like the less that you don't understand how little you know until you've kind of gone through the whole. And like I know now because I'm fucking almost 20 years into this thing. I know I suck compared to like the gods. I ain't that nice, but at the time, I actually probably thought that I was better than I am now, which is like so insane to think. But Nika's messing me up, and I'm really just still playing online in Florida. But I'm playing. I'm talking about like 6 to 10 hours a day. Pretty much every day of the week, I'm online grinding, and I didn't play any training mode. It was just grinding, and I would go set myself to offline, and I would pick and choose the same way I played on Fightcade. I would never. If you've ever played me on Fightcade, it's because I challenged you. Nobody has ever challenged me on Fightcade because I live in the shadows and I wait and I lurk and I go, you know what? That guy's a fucking cocksucker. Oh, got him, got him. Put that on the replay forever. And then I upload it to YouTube. No,
Of course.
But yeah, I'm playing OE and I'm winning and I'm feeling good. And then I quit. So I quit from like 2014 to 2017, and my life got a lot better. Frankly, I started. I graduated college. I was doing well. I was playing other games. I was really enjoying my life. I had met my she's my wife now, but I had met my wife and we're living together, and she had seen a little bit of Third Strike, but she was happy that it was over. And I was playing Street Fighter 4 at one point for a very brief period of time, and I tried to rekindle the magic with 4 and then again with 5 and again with 6. But Third Strike was always my favorite. And then in 2017, I decided to come back, and I think it was because 30th came out. So it was like 2017, 2018. So 30th drops, and it's like the crack dealer calls you, and he's like, hey, I got the good shit. It's back. And I bought this stuff hook, line, and sinker. I thought like 30th is going to be the best version ever, and like it's a modern release, and it ended up being total garbage. But I started playing again, and I got hooked on beating people. I got hooked on ranking up, and I got to 2045 black belt on PS4, and
Sure.
I had it with like 6 different accounts, and I'm really feeling myself, and I'm starting to beat people that like I recognize that name from that tournament. And I can tell you as a former pad, and I was still playing pad at this time, and I could tell you as a pad player, the kind of sense of shame when you're watching a tournament, knowing like I can't play. Like you come to my house, I don't have a USB.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't
And
playing.
you shouldn't. And you
If
shouldn't.
You don't. You shouldn't. But at that time, I was playing with B-Tran, and B-Tran, I told him, I was like, I'm going to learn stick. I live in New York City. I moved to New York at that point. I want to go to next level, and I want to go to iFix Machine was the arcade that was available at the time. But I didn't know how to play stick, so I bought a Quanba drone, which is a terrible stick. It's this little baby. I mean, everything's just like
It's so light too.
so light and awful. Yeah. So I bought a Quanba drone, and I started playing on 30th, and I played under a tag called I Am Learning Stick. because my ego is so insane where I'm like you might beat me, but like I could just plug my pad in and like you wouldn't beat me then. So like I had to tell them in the name, like this isn't me on my pad. But I started to win, and I started to win with Urian, which was really weird. So Urian was always my secondary character to Yun. And when I switched from pad to stick, the dexterity didn't come across. Like I wasn't able to move, and I still am not able to move with Yun the way that I could on pad. I've also lost the pad dexterity at this point, but the speed and the fluidity of Yun, for some reason, a thumb and tiny finger movements, like it just worked a lot better. And my Urian, which was always my secondary, was strong as a pad player, but I didn't have any execution because you can't really do anything sick on pad, or at least I couldn't. So when I transitioned over, I noticed that like holding down back and charging with a stick was actually very easy for me. And it was just it was a big movement that didn't require any sort of like fine motor skills. And a small little aside, when I was a child, I was diagnosed with a learning disability called dysgraphia, which actually affects my ability to use fine motor skills. So like my handwriting is horrific. You give me like, you try to like threading a needle for me, it just will never, I cannot do it. I'm really good with gross motor skills. Like I'm a sick ping pong player, always was a good athlete as a kid, but anything fine. So like Yun didn't, but Urian is all gross motor. Like it's all big movements, very little, and it's all fucking like, da-da, da-da, at least the way I play. People hate when I play on their tabs. I'm ripping the stick off. But I switched to Urian and I started to win. And I started to beat people that I had seen online. And I'm like, yo, I'm actually kind of nice at this stuff. I'm going to go to iFix Machine and I'm going to sign up. And I'm going to sign up as Dan. So at that point, people who played on OE knew Dude So High. I was on all the time and I probably beat you. I mean, there were people who beat me, but those people are all Jazzy champions. So like, they really are. So like, there were very few people who were beating me. And when I came offline, my ego was like, I can't be Dude So High. I'm just going to be Dan. So I showed up. I played in my first tournament, and I got 4th place as Yun. I didn't play Urian. I was scared of playing the Urian. So I played Yun, and I remember I was playing Helgen X, who's a super sick old school Ryu player. And Ray, you know the shoulder invulnerability for Yun through an EX fireball, right? Mm-hmm. So like EX. So let's say it's like a chip scenario, and he throws an EX. You want to do an EX shoulder through. It has way more invulnerability. So I wanted to. We're waking up. It's the final round. He gets up. I get up. He throws EX fireball, ship me out. And I go to do an EX shoulder, but I miss the EX. And I do a heavy or medium shoulder. And like slow motion, there's invulnerability in that move. So it goes under it somehow. And the whole crowd went crazy. And I hit the dash punch follow-up. And I won on like the final second. And everyone's like, who's this guy, Dan? He got 4th place. And I had beaten like a few of the kind of regular New York guys, none of the top guys, but I had beaten like the guys who'd been around for years. And I was sort of like this new kid on the block. And I was Dan. It was like very nice to say, have a good one, everybody. And I came back the next time and I signed up as Dr. Steelhammer. So Dr. Steelhammer was one of my like 70 alts. I have played under so many names. I mean, I've been everything from Soapy Donuts to Dr. Steelhammer. I've been Tubby Gummy. I've been, just Lance. I can't even remember. I've been Hot Carl 6. My first name on when I played on Xbox 15th anniversary. I wasn't Dude So High or Dr. Steelhammer. I was Hot Carl 6. So a Hot Carl, I believe there's different interpretations of it, but the way it was taught to me, a Hot Carl is when you put Saran wrap on someone's face. And then you shit on their face and you take the saran wrap off. And the way it was sold is it's all the fun with none of the mess. So that was something I heard at 14 or 15 and thought was hysterical. So I became Hot Carl 6. 6 is my favorite number. The problem with that name is I didn't put a space. So it looked like Hot Car 16, which drove me crazy. Because I don't like hot cars. I'm not like my little Ferrari. Like, I like shitting on people's faces and then taking the saran wrap off and being like, very good, well played. So I was very upset with Hot Carl 16 or Hot Carl 6, and it got banned because some people didn't know what Hot Carl was, and it became Hotter Carl 6. And then that got banned, and I became Hottest Carl 6. I had run through all of the Hot Carls, and I had run out of that. And then I become Dude So High. I was a big drug guy. That was actually my roommate's Xbox Live name. He had the gold account, and the name was already in there. And he was sort of this ironic, kind of like funny little dude. And he was a heroin addict, so he had this game, dude, so high. Like it was supposed to be like, dude, so high. Like it wasn't supposed to be like, dude, so high. Like I'm cool, man. Like it was irony.
Yeah.
And it also paired well with me because I was a fucking drug addict. So I ran Dude So High for many years, and then I come into the offline scene, and I got to pick a name, and I don't want people to know that I'm Dude So High because I don't want to have to live up to any of my expectations because people are like, oh, Dude So High, he was sick with Yun, and now he sucks offline. So I picked Dr. Steelhammer, and I won my first tournament. So like my first tournament with Urian was at iFix Machine, and I played Blue Urian, and I beat Ahmed in grand finals, and it was like a huge moment for the people in that scene because who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
And I show up, and Ahmed is somebody who's been around for a long time. He's beaten Nika KO in tournaments. He's won Northeast majors. He's like a legitimate New York staple. Like he was always, when you think about like the This Is Third Strike crew, you have the big names. You have Frankie, you have Nika, you have Holdat, you had Gavin for a while. You of course have Mutant XP, but like right there, interchangeable with like many of them. There's of course the Nika and Frankie and Mutant. Like I think they're the top, but like the Holdat, Gavin was probably top of that. But Ahmed was always right there with his brother Adam, and I just came out of completely nowhere, and I beat him in tournament, and I won, I don't know, $150 or something. And I went on the stream afterwards, and I called out the entire scene. So I was very frustrated because I wanted to play everybody, and I had showed up to iFix Machine, and there was like a group of people who ended up becoming some of my close friends, and there was Ahmed, and Ahmed was really the only guy. Benjiz was coming in and out, but he wasn't in that tournament. And I called out the scene. I was like, where is everybody? And you could probably find this video somewhere, but it was like, I shouldn't be winning this tournament. Like there should be, where's Nika? Where's Frankie? Where's Holdat? Where's, and it was a huge mistake because they all started to come and I stopped winning. I didn't win another tournament for a long time from there, but I met all those guys. And, I, on some level, take credit for pissing enough people off to kind of wake that scene up for a brief period of time. And, Ahmed and I had an amazing rivalry where, I won that first one. And the truth of the matter was, like, I shouldn't have beat him because at that moment, he was undeniably a stronger player than I was. He just took me lightly and he didn't know the Urian matchup. And he then tortured me for, 3 years. And I don't think I won another set against him in tournament for a while until the Jazzy finale where I fucking killed him. Took the fucking spear right into his heart, ripped it out. But up until that moment, like, he tortured me. So now I'm in the Third Strike scene in New York, and I'm having fun. I live in Brooklyn. I'm 5 minutes away. I'm starting to play on cab and get comfortable. I'm playing in tournaments, and it just perfectly coincides with the birth of Jazzy. So the Jazzy circuit, that tournament I won was, I think, the second or third Jazzy event of all time ever. And I got Jazzy points. And I'm a guy who went from S rank. And by the way, I got SS rank at some point on my 15th anniversary. I'm not trash.
No big deal.
I had a 65% win rate. So I had the S, became the SS. I had the number one ranked on Xbox Live. I had the black belt 2045 top 15 or whatever on PS4. And now I had 15 Jazzy points for winning a tournament. And just the drug addict kicked in. I'm like, I have to win more Jazzy points. And I saw like a national leaderboard, and I love leaderboards. I saw the national leaderboard, and I was like, I'm going to come to every single one of these monthlies, and I'm going to qualify for this tournament. And I ended up doing it. So I won, I think, 2 monthlies that year, and then I went to Mackay Cup, and I won Mackay Cup, and I snuck into the first Jazzy circuit on points, and I was seated dead last, and rightfully so. There's a really great documentary that I definitely recommend everybody watch.
Oh, it's amazing.
On the Jazzy circuit, season 1. And it's just a really cool depiction of that time in American Third Strike, like that resurgence. Like American 3S has gone through ebbs and flows. It has died and been reborn. And this was one of the upswings coming out of like a total dark age in New York City, having that major event there, people coming in from all over the country to be a part of it. And, it didn't go well. I got absolutely smoked. And it broke my heart. Like I went home and I sat on my kitchen counter and I was just completely devastated because I had put so much effort in and I had put so much expectation on myself. And thankfully season 2 started. So then season 2, I'm back on the grind and I'm out there and I'm playing and I shot myself in the foot. Lance, was season 2 Frosty?
Yeah, because yes, season 2 was Frosty because
Yeah.
season
Yeah.
1
So
I was
season
like still in Alaska for most of it.
and Frosty was the first tournament of the year, right? Like the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
major?
yeah, yeah.
So I go to Frosty and I have something to prove, and I ended up beating Frosty. I don't remember who was in grand finals, but they weren't very strong. But I won Frosty, which was an 88-man tournament,
Mhm.
and I think to this day it was the biggest tournament that like a Urian has ever really won. Like Urians don't win. We don't win. Like I had won monthlies and Urians like a 88-man tournament with a lot of strong players from across the country. Like I won that tournament. And it was kind of like this moment where I felt like I kind of belonged. And that fear of not being able to kind of prove myself or whatever, it's somewhat dissipated, but I wasn't able to like get the taste out of my mouth of the Jazzy experience that, you know, I went 0-2. I was, 13th place. I lost to two godlike players like KO Fiend and Five Star, but
Sure.
I didn't play well and I didn't really have a chance to showcase like the level that I was at. And in that time, I had become friendly with RKF. So RKF is like a extremely high level Urian master from Japan who has really innovated and created a bunch of setups. Like if you see something sick that's with Urian, he probably figured it out.
Mhm.
And it may have been refined at some point, but like he's the origin of a lot of really cool Urian combos. So my mentality of like poking and all this stuff, focusing on neutral game, I wasn't the combo guy. And then I met RKF and I became totally obsessed with training mode. And I wanted to be able to take this stick, which I had only recently become comfortable with, and take it to a totally different level because it was a tool that the pad never gave me. I could watch, Yakun do Daipon loop and I couldn't do it on pad, but now I had Urian and I had the stick and I was like total, I don't know if it's, autism or what the hell it is, but like there's something wrong with my brain because what needs to be understood is like I played for 3 years in a row between 5 and 12 hours a day every single day. And a good percentage of it was not games. A lot of it was training mode where I would put music. I played muted. I never would listen to the music of the game. And I would just sit there and mindlessly lab. I wasn't sitting there pen and paper. It was just reps. What I would do, and I suggest this for anybody who plays a high execution character, is I would pick the hardest possible thing that I could imagine and try to hit it for 40 minutes. So like if you take a difficult Urian sequence, there's probably 5 or 6 different kind of core elements of it, whether it be, EX move, whether it be charge partition, whether it be charge buffering, whether it be, sort of fast execution with an Aegis cancel. Like if you loop a very difficult sequence over and over and over again, you're going to build the skill set of each of its individual parts. So I would pick 100% combo and I would drop it for an hour and then I would hit it once. But in that hour, I was practicing 5 or 7 different Urian techniques.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would do that over and over and over. And then I started making the videos, which gave me the fuel to, really have to put out good combos and stuff. So labbing more and more and more and started winning more and more tournaments and just feeling more and more confident. And then Jazzy 2 comes around and I went into Jazzy 2 after COVID with this kind of like community feel. For the people who were there weren't too many of us because it was Lance, you were there. Ray, you were there too, right?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
But you snuck in the back door.
Yeah. I came up for the.
You weren't like. I remember when I saw you there. I'm like, this motherfucker's not supposed to be here. Like,
No.
where's the bouncer?
I came
Amazing.
up for the team tournament the night before, so I was like, "Oh, there's third strike.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
go compete in a team tournament." I think Mutant called me on the way down there and was like, "Hey, someone dropped out. I think it was Yuki that dropped out actually. Like, I forget. He said someone dropped out. Do you want to take their place?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll compete or I'll be in last chance qualifier or whatever it is." So, yeah, I
I
ended
believe we
up.
traded Yuki for Ray. That's crazy.
Dude, I don't know. I told him not to tell people that though. Like, you can't like bring people's expectations up that
walked
high,
in-
and then you get Ray.
You walked in, and I was looking for a bouncer. I was like, "Get the riffraff out of here!" I was like, "If anyone has COVID, it's him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He's bringing the COVID." But
Oh,
so we played Jazzy 2, and it was just a really Lance. I think you would attest to this. Jazzy 2 finale. It was the first time that we had been offline, and it was like, oh, we can breathe again, and we're playing again, and we're off the fightcade, and it's like there was less of like a competitive. Jazzy 1 was like everyone had their fangs out, everybody was ready to kill each other.
Sure.
Jazzy 2 was like way more chill, and I ended up disappointing myself because I lost to Marcus, who's an unbelievably talented Ibuki, and it really showed a major deficiency in matchup knowledge, and it's still a struggle. I don't understand the Ibuki matchup, but that kind of pushed me to really hyper focus on specific problematic matchups and to go in with a specific mindset. So like I had talked about the dice case strategy in terms of the game, but the reason Jazzy 3 went so well is because I had a different mindset. So Jazzy 3 comes around, I qualify in the first tournament, I win NEC, it was 11 people or something. It was a complete...
That's a beautiful jacket, by the way.
Oh, this old thing?
Yeah.
So Lance has got his jacket on. What makes my jacket a little bit different is that it is custom.
oh.
So I got the
fancy.
Steelhammer patch there. I got the winners don't do drugs. And then on the back, take my headphones off for the big reveal.
69.
Nice.
Beautiful.
So I think while you guys are talking Jazzy jackets, this is my I'm gonna go use the restroom real quick because
Yeah. Everyone who has a Jazzy jacket on the stream, of course, has it on.
I got the Urian here. So I win NEC, and I was super hype about it because it's like, wow, I've qualified for the Jazzy 3, the finale. But the problem was at the time, and I think the rules changed, is when you qualify, you can't continue to play. So I won the first tournament, and then whatever fire I had to keep going, which was really high, was totally snuffed out, and I wasn't able to play anymore. So from NEC until Jazzy 3 finale, which was probably like 6 months or so, I didn't play much at all. I was off Fightcade. I really didn't have an interest in it. At that point, my life was kind of coming together where I had like bigger and bigger jobs, and I had more and more work, and I really didn't even want to go to Jazzy 3, but I went in with a totally different mindset. Jazzy 1, I was like, I have to prove myself. It was all about like, I have to prove that I belong. I feel like a fraud. In so many ways, I am a fraud. Like, this is imposter syndrome. And I had set the bar of not going 0-2, and I went 0-2, and it was like, oh my God, this is like so devastating to me. And then Jazzy 2, I don't go 0-2. I go, I think, 1-2. I beat Flannel Jack, and then I lost to Marcus, and I lost to... I don't even remember at this point, which is great that I don't care anymore.
You snuffed out that memory. Who did you lose to? You lost to Marcus and...
Oh, Issei.
Oh, was that what it was?
Did I lose to Issei? Yeah, I lost to Issei.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because like you play Flannel Jack, and then because Flannel Jack had put him himself right next to Issei, right? Because everyone else was like...
You had picked Issei, right?
Oh, funny you mentioned that. Yeah. Okay. So at the time,
God.
so Issei goes on the board first, right? And then Flannel Jack puts himself next to Issei, right? Which no one else is putting. Like no one else good is putting themselves over there. Like the first 3 people to go up are like, put me as far away from Issei as possible. Like zero interest in playing Issei. And so yeah, we were like, okay, well. So yeah, I go after Issei first round, and so you play Flannel Jack, and then you would have played Issei second round, right? And so
I did.
I don't know like if that actually ended up working out or not, right? Because our thinking was like, okay, no one is going to be on that side of the bracket, right? And so if we beat Issei, then cool, we have like an easy path there. But losers is I mean, once you get to losers, like everyone's a killer, right? So you can't really do that much.
I just wanted to win a single game, so I did that, and I ran into Issei, and what was so sick about running into Issei is I almost ran into you because you were so close to beating Issei in that first round. It was unbelievably electric to be in that room watching you like so close to beating him. And I really think that, like, of course, anyone who's watched the tournament, Issei does not win. Issei loses to 5-star.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you were the first kind of, like, you stabbed him. I think the confidence got a little bit shook of, like, whoa, this was supposed to be a cakewalk. And, like, right out of the gates, round 1, this Chun, I imagine he knows you, but, like, Lance is pushing me really, really hard. And then 5-Star did the greatest thing in the history of the American, third strike scene by defeating Issei, resetting the bracket, beating him 6-0.
Yeah.
Like,
Incredible.
it's
Yeah.
we will never ever see anything like that again, ever. Like 5-Star to me, when he did that, he became just a god like the rest of the gods. Like he's elevated, and he should have quit like I did. But, um, so Jazzy 2, I lose, and I'm very sad again. I remember standing outside of the tournament with Frankie. Frankie had just lost, and we're just sort of standing there, and we're just like broken. Like we have put so much of our time into this, and it's once a year, and like he wasn't able to live up to his expectations. He had gotten second in the first year. He wasn't able to kind of replicate that in the year two, and I was devastated that I had lost to Marcus. I really felt like in casuals I had an understanding of the matchup, and he had switched to a different super, and I just wasn't able to on the fly. I didn't know the specifics of that super, the how punishable a lot of Urian's move were. Like the one where the kunais get thrown. I think it's like super 2
3,
or
I
something.
think. Yeah, super 3.
Is 3 is the daggers.
Oh, maybe 1
right?
then, because 2 is the grab, big grab or whatever.
Oh, 1 is a grab. So it's the one where it's just the kunais on the ground.
Yeah,
and he beats me, and I'm very very sad. And I win NEC Jazzy 3. We're going for the third time. At that point, being a 3-time Jazzy finalist was something that like I wanted to be able to be there every single time that it was available. I wanted to really just put my stamp. And then I have to sit on the sidelines for the entire year after I win this like really small tournament in Philadelphia. I get this super sick jacket. And Jazzy 3, I go into it with this mindset of like, I am free because I don't care. I genuinely didn't care. 1, I was like putting so much pressure on myself. 2, a lot of pressure on myself. And 2, I felt like I was at the strongest I'd ever been. And 3, I lost almost every game I played in casuals. Like I lost to everybody. Every local Texas player was probably like, "Yo, Steelhammer sucks," and they were right. But I went into that tournament, and I went in with a mindset of I literally don't care. And my first match was against Chris G. And Chris G was someone who beat me in the grand finals of East Coast Throwdown, which was my first major tournament. So my first major tournament I ever played in was ECT, and Ricky Ortiz was supposed to be my first match, but Ricky didn't show up. So I went from being the bottom seed to being the top seed. I went from 16 to 1 because Ricky didn't come. And then I had breezed through the bracket, and I ended up with Chris G in grand finals. And everybody who plays fighting games knows Chris G, and I had never met him. And within one round, I realized like, oh, this guy's different. Like Chris G is different. The way that he plays fighting games is pretty unbelievable. His patience and his defense and his ability to tech throws on the last possible frame. I'm an online player. I had never seen a patient, slow, offline focused style. Like Chris G is not running 1,000 games on Xbox OE to get ready for Third Strike. I mean, he hadn't played in probably years, but he's playing in Chinatown Fair with Justin Wong. And like that shattered my perspective on what the game really could be. I didn't realize that you could play like that. And he trolled me too. Like he was playing, I think his Ibuki for a little bit. He was playing, I think he might've played his Sean, played his Ryu, and it really pissed me off. So Jazzy 3, I'm on the board. I put my name down, and someone has to pick me. And Chris comes up and he goes, "I'll play the Urian." And I go, "Oh, this is payback, motherfucker." And I sat down and I played Chris G. And that feeling I had at ECT 2018, which was this guy's different, was totally flipped. I'm like, I'm different now, Christopher. And I destroyed him, and it felt fantastic. And there was this rules, issue with the buttons broken, and I'm just sitting there smiling.
You made him rage quit.
Loving it. I beat Chris G in one set, and I 0-2'd him because he disqualified himself from the tournament.
You may have ended his career, I think. Has he played since then?
I don't think he's coming back to Third Strike.
I would hope not. The sweet satisfaction of being able to take my first tournament demon who took ECT, and this was at a time when ECT, they have amazing trophies, and Chris got a record. He got a giant record that said East Coast Throwdown, Third Strike champion. Like I saw the East Coast Throwdown just happened. Like the Third Strike champion got I think it was Bisu, Taoism. So no, Bisu was Taoism, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Same
So
guy.
he got like a little plaque. But Chris, when he beat me, he got a trophy, like a sick trophy that would be on my wall. And he had like 4 of them. And I had my little rinky-dink silver medal. And when I ended his third strike career, it felt truly remarkable. And that was just the start of a really fun run where then every single person that I played, I had history with. Some of them I had beef with. Some of them, they were my teachers. You know, I ended up playing Nika KO, and Nika KO, when I was coming up, you know, he was what he is now, which is like arguably the greatest player who's ever stepped foot in this country. Like, I mean, he's amazing. And to play him and to be able to beat him, I didn't finish that set being like, oh, I'm better than Nika, because Nika knows I ain't better than Nika, and I know that I ain't better than Nika.
Sure.
But it was this moment of like, 2 out of 3, anything can happen, and I built a Urian at a level where like I can beat people that I shouldn't beat, and like that requires a certain level of skill. You know, most people can't get to that level, and I had gotten to that level, and I had been beaten so many times by the world, the third strike community. Just like I had recognized that ego that told me I was, you know, godlike when I was 16, like that wasn't there. When I beat Isai, when I didn't beat Isai, when I beat Nika, and when I beat Yuki, both of those guys taught me so much about the game. And not even 1% of me grew in terms of like, I'm better than these guys. I know first to 10, first to 20, first to 30, first to whatever, those guys beat me every single time, but I beat them that day. And I think it was just because I got out of my own way and I allowed random chance to happen. I didn't try to force it, and I let the character do what he does. And, you know, from there I was able to beat Daisuke, and Daisuke is someone who really did teach me third strike. Like, you know, Frankie and Yuki and Nika, all these guys have taught me specific things about third strike, but Daisuke taught me third strike. And I used to joke with him when he would come to my house, I'd buy him a pizza and we would play on my super gun for like 6-7 hours, and he would teach me how to play, and we'd watch YouTube videos, and he would, you know, break it all down for me. I would joke with him. I go, at the end of this anime, I kill you. And I want you to know that. Like, this anime ends with the student killing the master. And I would send him pictures of like Goki doing the demon over his master and all this stuff. So to be able to beat Daisuke, move on from there, and then to fight Ahmed. So Ahmed was the person who had really caused me the most mental anguish, and he was someone that, you know, tortured me. He bullied me, straight up bullied me. And to be able to beat him in the last sequence, I was expecting that I was going to like pop off, but there was just kind of this like relief of like, it's over. Like, it's actually over. And then to beat Makoto Mike and, you know, get into grand finals, at that point I was just playing with the house's money. And like, Mike is so damn good. And Mike and I played a lot on OE. He has the name Pending Download. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I ran into him on OE, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? This guy's Makoto's insane. And slowly I learned it's Makoto Mike Wakefield. You know, he was, you know, top, I think, 4th place in EVO 2004, 3.
I think it was the later ones, like 08 or 09 or something, but yeah.
Oh, was it that late?
Yeah.
So he was placing at EVO when I was just learning how to play the game. So, you know, long story short, I got out of my own way, and I allowed myself to actually, you know, let Urian do the work. And I got lucky. And, you know, what are you going to do? Take it away from me? You can't. I don't have a medal to show. You know, I never got a medal for it. But, you know, I'm done with third strike because there's nothing left for me to really do. I never had aspirations of winning Cooperation Cup. And I've talked to American players who really want to win Cooperation Cup. I know I'm not going to win co-op. That's fine. SBO's gone. COVID ruined my only opportunity to play in Cooperation Cup. I got a kid now. I got a wife. I got a full-time job. You know, I got to save money for college. I can't be spending $6,000 to go to Japan to lose. Like, I don't want to go back and fly out to Cincinnati and play a Mackay Cup and put it all on the line for what? Like, there's no upside to me competing again. When I would compete, it would cause so much stress. And when I would win, I would get relief. I wouldn't get joy. I wouldn't get pride.
Sure.
I wouldn't get, you know, elation. I would get relief, as if I had just gone and gotten a fresh breath of air after drowning. But when I would lose, I would be in the center of the earth, surrounded by all my, you know, demons. And it was like, this isn't worth it to me anymore. Mm-hmm. And I had felt very much that I had been able to kind of leave my stamp on the Urian community. And the Urian community is in amazing hands right now. We have Resolve, we have Keychain, we have a bunch of up and coming players in my server who are causing problems for people. Like they're not fun to play against a lot of my students. Like they're annoying ass Urian players.
That's true.
And I was able to do that. And watching Resolve play in Jazzy 4, I didn't go to Jazzy 4 and I won't be going to Jazzy 5 or 6 or 7. I hope it goes forever, but watching him play was so amazing to be able to see like he's me, Jazzy 1. And like now it's Jazzy 4 and my life has changed a lot and I can't do that anymore. But like I was able to kind of help this kid enough and he took what information I had and he, expanded upon it and built his own Urian. And now he's playing in the big leagues and, he's very much set up to go and at 20 years old or whatever, have a much longer, more kind of productive career than I would and hopefully pass on his information to the next generation. So I don't really have much left to do in the game. I like it. I have it.
Mm-hmm.
I got these cabs. I got a Mr. Cade, and I'm just playing Super Nintendo games. And convince me to come back. Like there's nothing for me here. And there's no love. I mean, I love the community and but I'm a competitor. I want to win. I know that I will never be able to get to the level where I can realistically compete with the next generation because I don't have the time anymore. I'm 35 years old almost. Like I have a 5-month-old child. I'm not out there to hang out with my buddies and shoot the shit. I'm out there to win the tournament. And I cannot compete at a level. It's not radically different from like an athlete or something. I'm an esports athlete. Let's be real. It's not radically different from like an athlete at the end of their career being like, I just don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. My life has changed. Their bodies break down. My life broke down or broke up. It got better. Like it's way better than just playing 20 hours of video games. But I just don't have it in me any longer. And I've played one time since Jazzy. My friend Zebes, Zebes, who made a lot of great artwork for me. He came to my house and we played, and it was super fun, and my heart was pounding, and it was like, wow, this game's amazing. We had the great, but I don't want to play anymore.
So here's my question. So you kind of talked about. So I'll tell you your story from my point of view, the parts that I observed, right? This is like from my point of view. So of course we played on Xbox Live back in the day, long ago, and then you showed up. I want to say what was it like 2017 or something, around that 2018, somewhere in there, 30th basically. That's when you kind of show back up, and there's like at the beginning, right, for maybe like the first year, like you and I are playing. We like reconnect, and you and I are playing a lot, and it feels like at the beginning I was like, oh, like I'm doing my whole shtick. People who know me are like, oh yeah, Lance will like play 4 different characters against you. Just to be like, look, I can beat you with 4 different characters, right? I'm doing that whole thing with you. And at first, I'm like, okay, this is going well. But you keep playing constantly. You're rapidly improving at a rate that I really haven't seen many people improve at ever, right? It becomes within like months of like, okay, I can't beat him with side characters anymore at all. So I don't even try, right? And we're just playing Chun-Li Urian constantly. And it gets to the point where like, yeah, we're breaking even. And I think when we go into Frosty, into that grand finals, at that time period, you and I were like breaking even.
Dead even, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I was like, I knew like, oh, like there's a very good chance I could lose. Like, I feel like I'll be in grand finals. Obviously, Big Nasty is insane too, so it's like not guaranteed, right? But like, okay, I think I'll play Dan in the finals. But like, I easily could lose, and so that was like that's kind of leads into that, and you keep going, improving past that, right? And I'm trying to like you and I are playing a bunch. We're playing with Vessels a bunch, and we're all kind of like trying to rise together, right? Take advantage of that. And it kind of leads into where you end up with Jazzy, where you just like beat everyone and you go home the champion. And you've talked a little bit about like the obsession and the addiction and like how shitty you feel when you lose. So I get the sense that it's like for you, Third Strike in that time period was a complete obsession, maybe something not healthy for you, right? And like even though you had this meteoric rise and you did all these great things, like you couldn't really engage with the game in a way that was like a normal person, right? Like you had to be addicted and you had to be the best.
Mm-hmm. You nailed it. And I had a conversation with Holdat. Matt is a wonderful man. And I think secretly he is the sickest player. Like Holdat is godlike and he doesn't get the credit. He's had these unbelievable, Japanese runs and he's had, he was 4th place Jazzy too. He had my run before I had my run. Jazzy 2
Mhm.
Hold That was the one as an Alex player. I'm playing Urian. Urian's actually good. Alex is garbage. And
Sure.
he took that character all the way to 4th place. I had a conversation with Hold That about Third Strike and trying to pick his brain because he has a very pure love of the game of Third Strike. He loves the sound. He loves the music. He loves the art. He loves the culture. He loves the people. I don't. I love winning. I love winning. And Third Strike is the game that I win the most at. I've played other versions of fighting games and I don't win that much and I don't play them that much. Third Strike is without question my favorite video game of all time. But I was never able to truly love it because the desire to crush the other person. So like Lance knows me very well. And Lance knows that like I'm pretty fucked up in the head when it comes to competition. Like I don't beat people. I go out there. My intention has always been if you sit on the other side of the cab from me, I want to beat you so bad that you never play again. Like that has always been my mindset. It's like I want to destroy my opponent. I've never, if you ever played me, and many people have, I have never taken it easy on you. I have never, sandbagged. Whatever version you got of me was the absolute best version of me that I could create at that moment. It may not have been the best that I was ever, I might have had an off day. I might have been super sick, but that was the best. So that is my mindset. And that is like burning the candle at both ends. And Hold That told me during that conversation, like, pump the brakes, you're going to burn out. And like, I burned out. And that's just the natural course of action. If you put all of yourself, and I sacrificed a lot. I mean, I have a wife. I've been with her, we've been married for 2 years. I've been with her for 12 years. So like, she's been there through all of this. I sacrificed huge amounts of time where we could have been doing something meaningful. And I'm just banging away on the controller. And, she's obviously obsessed with me. So she dealt with it. But I missed out on huge opportunities to go and, be a normal person and not just, grind away on a Dreamcast video game. And I have some regrets about that. But, Third Strike gave me something that I hope everybody has at some point in their life. The clarity to recognize that sometimes you're just not good enough. Like that there is always going to be someone better than you. I have attempted to become a world-class Third Strike player with every fiber of my being. And I kind of maybe did it a little bit, but I'm not that good. And I'm way better than most of you motherfuckers listening right now. So, like, way better. So, like, that, to pursue something with all of yourself and to fail, and, I succeeded in some ways, but I didn't win that tournament. And I'm not the Cooperation Cup champion, and I never won SBO. And, if you ask 100 of the top players in the country, none of them are going to say that I'm the number one player in America. And, like, that's okay, because I absolutely did the best that I could. And with most of the things in my life, I always kind of chickened out at the last minute. I, like, tried really hard, but then was like, I'm afraid of failure. With Third Strike, I went 100% at it. And I did as much as I could, and I don't want to do that anymore. And I cannot just sit down and play a casual set with somebody and have fun. I don't have side characters, and I don't like to lose. So, like, if we're going to play, and Lance and I, we know, like, we didn't play for a long time because I just couldn't stomach it. Like, it's to play Lance, because Lance is me. Like, there's no player that is more at my level than Lance. I mean, he's way better than me now because I don't play anymore. But, like, we were the same, and he was better, and then I was better, and he was better. And, like, he pushed me so far. But, like, there was nothing I wanted to do less than play Lance. I don't want to play Lance. I ripped a shirt once playing Lance online. We're playing. I made Exodus break his computer once, so I can tell this story. But that story, DM me, I'll tell you the story. But
we'll ask you about it on the next episode.
Lance and I would play these first to tens, and we would go back and forth. But for a minute there, he was getting me, and he was getting me good. He was getting me 10-3, he was getting me 10-4, and it was fucking my mind up. So I told him, okay, we saw all in Fight Kid. I go, get back on OE. Get the CRT. Fight Kid is fake. Play me on OE. And he had beat me on Fight Kid like 10-4 or something. So we go on OE, and he beats me 10-2.
Don't
Something he
remember
just he destroys me. It was my trump card of like, play me on the real shit, and he beats me worse. And I had a shirt, and I Hulk Hogan'd it. And this is a move I've done multiple times in my life, and you either get it or you don't. And if you don't, it hurts. It hurts your hands. Some of these shirts, this is an Arcade shirt. My boy Cedric.
Yep.
Shout out
Plus
to
City
Cedric.
Rain.
Arcade.
Yep.
The King, Cedric. Unbelievable hospitality when I was at Jazzy 3. I would
Absolutely.
never rip the Arcade shirt. But I ripped this shirt, and I got it. And it went down. And my wife's in the other room. And, you know, when you rip a shirt and you're not Hulk Hogan, there's a noise that comes. It's, like, I got to really get into it. So she comes out, and I have half a shirt dangling. And you just see on the screen, Chun-Li wins. And she goes, who is it? Was it Exodus? And it's like, no, it was the other guy. It was the white guy, fucking Lance. So Lance has tortured me. I'm not able to just sit and play.
Mm-hmm.
I need to play to kill. And like, if I know that I can't kill anymore, I'm not fucking playing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, I think so. Right, we had that server, right? And like me, you, and Bessels were playing. And I felt like at that time we were all pretty much in the same ballpark. And we were all playing each other. And it was very useful, from I think we all got better at these matchups and these characters just playing each other a bunch. But because we were all competitive, because we really wanted it, and we both, all three of us are like, because you get to a certain level, right? And this is like my perspective. It's like, okay, you get to a certain level and you're like, okay, there's these guys up top. I'm not supposed to beat them, so I'm cool with losing to them. But you don't really lose to other people that much. Like, that's just feeling realistic. And the three of us were like, trading sets constantly. And I remember so many Discord voice calls that started off jovially, but within a few games, we were just silent. Both sides are fucking fuming, won't say a word to each other. And then after the voice calls over, okay, GG's, bye. And then the call-ins, right? That was for like 6 months.
Dude, I would play B-Tran one time a year. And whatever happened, that was the better player for the year. Like, I couldn't do it. Because, like, B-Tran and I go way back. Way longer than I know Lance. I knew B-Tran, and I was talking with B-Tran regularly, and he was a 15-year-old kid, and I was a Yun main, and he was learning Yun. And he will tell you, till he's blue in the face, 5-star taught me how to play, 5-star. Fuck that, bitch. I taught you how to play. I am your master. And we went back and forth. Well, I bodied him for like years. Mm-hmm. I never lost anything to him ever. And then he became sick. And I had quit. And when I came back, I'm playing my pad and I can't beat him on my pad. So I go to my stick and I can't beat him on my stick. And I'm running out of options. And he was nice enough to kind of teach me what he had learned in my interim. And, having guys like Lance and having guys like B-Tran, to find people who are at your level where you can compete 100% and know, like, do I have to improve in this area? It's so easy to just go around and beat the guys that you can beat. And it's also equally easy to go and play Nika KO and Kang and to just know, like, I can't beat these guys.
And it's fine not to beat them.
And it's fine. And I have those guys, like, when I lost to Issei, I didn't go, oh, shucks. There was a huge part of my mind that was like, you can't fucking beat Issei. And I couldn't. But it didn't hurt as bad as when I lose to someone like a B-Train or I lose to a Lance, or a guy that I feel like I should be able to, maybe if I play my best beat. Mm-hmm. You got to find those dudes that are at your exact level that you can just bang heads against. And then you got to find the guys that are soft that you can practice your offense on. And you got to go and fight Nika KO once in a while to remind yourself that you suck. But like, you can't just live in one of those worlds. And like, for a long time, I lived in the world of just feeding off of everybody. And I would go into Fightcade and I would just, I was like the, 6th or 7th person to get an S rank.
Yep.
And I got my S rank in a way that people were like, this is bullshit. I got my S rank because I won multiple 100 game streaks. Like, I beat every B rank 5-0 for, I think I played for 16 straight hours on the Bamboozling account. And I sat there for like between 14 and 16 hours. And anytime a little blue bee showed up, and I would sit there and I played every single game as if my life depended on it, because I knew if I lost, I was going to lose a huge amount of points. And if I won, I was going to win 2 or 3 points.
Yeah.
And I won. There are 2 streaks I had that were like between 70 and 110 games. And I got my S rank, and I never played ranked again. And it's like, that is not healthy for a human being.
Yeah.
And this wasn't like a conscious decision. This wasn't like, I want to do this because I want an S rank. It was a compulsion. It was a desire that was like completely outside of my control. It's addiction. Like, I'm a drug addict. I have 15 years sober off of hard narcotic drugs. My life is going tremendously well, and I'm a substance abuse counselor, and I have a big caseload, and I'm taking new clients. If anyone's struggling with drugs, I'm very expensive, and I'm not giving discounts. So, especially to scrubs. If you can beat me, if you've ever beaten me in Third Strike and you're struggling with drugs and alcohol, I'll work with you for a relatively low cost. But if you suck, you're paying full price. But I'm a fucking addict, bro. And the way that I've always played has been 100%. And I just don't have it in me anymore. And I just, you know what? I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so now all that being said, so one thing I know you missed, right? It didn't work out because of COVID. Like, I know there were plans of like, okay, Cooperation Cup, and basically COVID happens and ends the world. And by the time Cooperation came back, like, you were done. You just weren't playing anymore. So now Cooperation Cup is back. Is that something I'm still interested in?
It's not, and mainly because I'm not that good anymore. Like, I'm not strong. This idea, like, Ray, we've played a lot of games. I always fuck you up. If we played, I always do. You know it. If we played right now, you'd beat me. But the beautiful thing is, you'll never get the chance.
Oh my God.
Get the chance. Ever. And like, I can't go back. I can't go back and just be like, hey guys, so I'm a little rusty. Fuck that. I am Jazzy 3, top placing American. All of you can suck the head of my dick because it's over. And you'll never have another chance to play me. And if you lost to me, sorry. If you beat me, you got lucky. I was rusty.
Yeah, so the final time that Dan and I played, it was on Fightcade, right? And I think the final score is
13-13.
13-13. And he messages me and he says, "We will never play again. It's tied. We'll call it even." And we never did. We never played again.
It was a really interesting set because it was 2 sets. And the first one, you won 10-8. But when I looked at the replays, it was 9-8. And it drove me crazy. And we went back, and I won the next 2 games. And I won the unofficial 1-10. Mm-hmm. And then you went on a streak. And then you were up in this other 1-10 that had started somehow. You weren't aware of any of this, by the way.
Oh, right, yeah. This is not a 1-10 I was aware that was happening.
No. And those are the best 1-10s. So those are the only ones that count. So then we finally get to like 11-11, 12-12, and then we got to 13-13, and my body was shutting down. When Wax, you know this. Playing Lance, if you want to beat Lance, you can play Lance all day. You want to beat Lance, you have to get into a mindset where every fiber of your being is focused, and there is nobody having fun. No one is having a good time. Lance isn't having fun. You're not having fun.
True.
And you might beat him. Like, you might beat him. And the times that I've beaten Lance, I feel like I lose. Like, no, I've never... When I lose to Lance, I lose. And when I beat Lance, I lose. So, the character and the way that he plays it, kudos to you. But just sucked the joy. And that's a big aspect of the game that I don't think is talked about enough. When you get to a certain level, it isn't that much fun because it's so goddamn stressful.
Yeah, sure.
Very, very. Yeah, like Fightcade has ruined my day several times. Like, and my wife can tell immediately. Like, oh, you had a bad day playing Third Strike, didn't you? Like, oh yeah, I just fucked my day all up. Yeah, don't talk to me for a bit, please. Let me stew on this.
I've always looked at Third Strike as just sort of like a salt transferring agent, where like Lance beats me and I'm bitter. So I got to go find some other fucker, and I got to give him all that salt. And then he's bitter, and he's got to find another idiot, and he's got to give him all that salt. And like at the top, there's just Kuroda at the salt mines, and he's just making this. He's making the salt. He's digging the salt out of the earth, and he's throwing it out into the world, giving everybody the salt. But like, it all just comes down from the gods, the 5 gods, or wherever they are, they create the salt, they bring it down out of Japan, and it gets sent over to America, and then it gets into my heart, and I got to get it out and give it to you. And like, I just had too much salt in my heart.
Yeah. I remember, so right when Fight K2 comes out, right? Like, you and I are two of the earliest people on this platform.
Yeah.
And you are playing everyone, right? You are just fucking checking names off a list and, reporting your results to me, right? You basically just went through everyone who was playing online. You just crushed them all just one by one. Like, you were making a statement, it felt like.
Yeah, without question. And then if you look, never played him again.
You're right. I remember you saying, like, oh, yeah, if I owed him last time, we'll never play again.
Well, why would I? Like, my mindset was, you have one chance. You fucked it up, you're done. See me in the Jazzy finale. Like, if you actually, because I'm going to be there. Like, I'm going to be there through hell or high water. I'm getting there. I could get to, even at my level right now, I could get to Jazzy 5 finale just because I know how to game it. Like, I would, if I was in my old mindset, I'm getting on flights. I'm going to week scenes. I went to North Carolina Charlotte monthly during the Jazzy 2. I flew to Charlotte for a monthly. Charlotte. This ain't the North Carolina scene. This is a very small sub scene in North Carolina. None of their big players came. I won it by winning over 100 games, casuals into tournament. I never lost. I won 103 straight games. I flew there to win 20 points or something. That's what you're dealing with here. Like, I will get to the Jazzy finale, and then where the cards will fall where they may. In Jazzy 1, they did not fall well. Jazzy 2, not so great. Jazzy 3, I hit the fucking jackpot. Am I going to go to Jazzy 4 and 5 and try to hit the jackpot? I go, no, I'm taking my money and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
We could run Jazzy 3 100 times. That doesn't happen more than once.
Yeah, I remember Yi talking about, like, that felt like a very any given Sunday tournament, right? A lot of competitive players played a lot of great matches. Today was Dan's day, like that was pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, if that's, that was your walk into the sunset moment, right? That's the end of the story.
It's the end of the story, and I'm somewhat joking when I say, like, I'm out because I win. I'm out because I have a fucking life that's worth more to me than 10 hours a day of Third Strike. I know what that life is. I know that life deeply and intimately. I know what that is. And when I was doing drugs, I know what doing drugs all day feels like. It's fucking great until it's not. And like, Third Strike is great until it's not. Until like your sleep is totally messed up. And like, when you close your eyes, you see combos. And like, you're losing to people that you don't want to lose to, and it breaks your heart, and you're fucking miserable, and then you're winning, but you say, well, Nika wasn't there, so it doesn't matter. Like, all these, I never gave myself the ability to actually be happy, ever. And that's just the way that I'm wired, and I think it drove me in a lot of ways, because the truth is, like, I am not a naturally gifted fighting game player. Like, there are gifted people who play these types of games. Resolve is gifted. Yuki Spencer is gifted.
Yeah.
I mean, they have blessings from something otherworldly. Like, there are players out there, they talk about like KO in Japan. Like, these people are special. I'm not special. I just am insane. And I drove my fucking head into the brick wall until the point where these things somehow were able to pull off some wins that I shouldn't have done. And I know that. Like, I don't have this ego that thinks that, like, I, like, could go do it again. I couldn't do it again. And I'm not going to try. I fucking hit the jackpot.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me.
And you don't think that you could, like, there's not a way for you to say, like, okay, I'm going to take on, because a lot of the top players now, I've been playing for 20 years. And they're all just, they kind of play when they can. Oh, Jazzy's coming, I'll kind of get into shape. Oh, I have, like, an hour here, I'll hop on Fightcade real quick. But it sounds like, for you, that's just not an option. Like, it has to be all or nothing.
Well, it is an option until I get the bug again. Mm-hmm. And then we're back to the races. I'm a fucking fiend, bro. So, like, when I played 30th, it wasn't because I wanted to play for 10 hours. It's the best game ever. Mm-hmm. And, like, if I had a roommate or if my wife knew how to play, I'd be playing right now. I just got out of rehab. And I'm sober off of Third Strike. And, like, I don't want to test the waters. I have a Fightcade set up right over there. if I start playing, I'm going to keep playing.
Sure.
And like my life is objectively easier and better without Third Strike because the way that I've created Third Strike in my mind is not healthy. And I would have to imagine there are people out there that can relate. Like, I am a video game addict. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Mm.
Whether it's Baldur's Gate or Dark Souls or, Third Strike, like when I play video games, I play them as a form of escapism. Like, it's because I am not comfortable in my own skin. And maybe I don't recognize this in the moment, but I would much rather be Urian being the fucking shit, crushing people on Fight Kit or learning combos, than to just be Dan. Like, sometimes I just don't want to be me. And I found a way through Third Strike to, not only escape my own mind, but to be able to, like, be accepted. And, like, I put so much of myself into that. So when I would meet someone, they would go, "Oh, you're sick," or "Great, I love your videos." Like, at the core of all of this kind of like big ego is a very sort of like fragile person who just really wants to be accepted. And I think the narcissism that always, I hope, comes out as a joke, but it's not a joke. it's always balanced with the truth, which is a real inferiority complex. And whether it be me on Xbox 15th anniversary trying to get the SS rank, or it's me at Chinatown Fair at 16 years old trying to, beat Justin Wong, even though he was not even there. Like, whatever, any of these chapters of my life, it was always just sort of this like little boy being like, "I'm good, right, guys? I'm fucking good, right?" And like for the first time, and maybe it had to be me doing something objectively good by getting the highest placing for an American, I'm like, I'm good. I'm fucking actually good for once. Like, I genuinely feel like I beat Third Strike. And if you can't beat Third Strike, like you can beat the arcade mode. But like for the parameters I set for myself, which were always unattainable and unrealistic, I did it. And like only a fool would go back and try to get another hit. Because like I'm never going to get that hit again. I'm never going to go and have that run at Jazzy again. I could go win a New York Monthly with 4 guys who played VSAV. I could go, but I'm never going to get that hit again. So I dropped the crack pipe.
Sure.
But I'm still around. Like, I'm still in the Third Strike Discord. People Twitter, they send me Twitter messages. They send me, "I'll fucking watch your stupid Urian, and I'll tell you why you suck." Like, I will. It's probably because you don't block. Like, you got to block. But I'm no longer competing, and I probably would like to go the rest of my life without playing any sort of serious Third Strike games. Truthfully, I would love that. It would be a great life for me.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's kind of shift a little bit. So so in your competitive, your competitive thing, we've kind of just talked about it. You hit the top. You beat the single player game, right? You beat the final boss. You don't have to play again. You beat it. But there's this whole other element, this whole other dimension of what you've been doing in Third Strike over the last 5 years, right? Which is obviously the content creation. We kind of touched on that earlier. But building the Urian server, which I think is like most likely the by far the most successful character server for Third Strike. And yeah, you kind of like built a little cult, I feel, to the point where I've met your students in the wild, because I know, I was in the Urian server and I talked to a lot of these people, so I know them. But then there's people I don't know about who, for instance, at Texas Showdown last year, I played just some random Urian. It's like, and no one knew who he was, so I just played him in the first round in pools, and I almost lost. And I was like, wow, that like I just couldn't get a feel for like when he so like I think he was like mainly a KOF player, and so
I think his name was,
sometimes the way people
Rat
play.
Tail? Rat Tail, was that it?
Is that what it? I don't know.
I think it was.
I know Blue Rat. Oh yeah, he's in my server. He's sick.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I didn't know who he was, and like I almost lost to him. It goes down to the final round, and I have to like block 2 fucking Aegises in the final round, I think, just to survive this monster. And then I was like, "Oh, like you played really well." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I watched Steelhammer's videos. That's where I learned everything." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he's just put out these little landmines everywhere. So even years after he stopped playing, I just almost had my leg exploded off by one of them. So yeah, tell me about what it's that the content, the Discord server, this community, this cult you've built of Urians. How did you convince them all that Urian isn't terrible?
Well, I've convinced them that he is terrible.
Okay.
And that's the ultimate option select. There's a series of various memes in my server, and one of the big ones is that Urian is bottom tier, and it's something that we all deeply believe as a shield to the truth, which is you just lost because you stink. So the server came very much organically. I joined, I think what was the original Discord server that was amazing, that Arxer hit the big red button and destroyed.
Oh, well, that one was a long time ago. Yeah, I remember that.
That was Third
But
Strike Friends or something. No, that
there was
was
one
your
before
server.
that. Yeah, there was.
So I joined Discord and I didn't know what it was. I'm
Mhm.
kind of old, so like I didn't know what this shit was. And I just found it to be amazing to connect with all these players and to communicate with, you know, new players, legendary players, to just have that ease of access. And when I was making the videos, I needed help. Like I don't know everything about Urian, and I've always been a fan of this idea that you shouldn't judge somebody based on this idea of what you expect them to know. Like there are many people out there who suck at Third Strike that know things that I don't know. Like
Mhm.
I've been taught Urian setups by Goki players. I've been taught, how to charge partition specific things by people who don't even really play Third Strike. Like there's this guy Silent Scope who's a
Mm.
CVS2 player. I think he just
Mhm.
came back from Japan. I met him at Makai Cup, and he showed me how to do a Urian partition. And I'm the Urian guy, and it's like this guy plays CVS2. He plays Cammy or something in
ST,
Street Fighter
yeah.
2, and ST, and he's got a Urian. He plays a good Urian at Third Strike, but he's not a Third Strike player, and he wouldn't even pretend to be.
Mhm.
But he showed me how to do this very intricate unblockable that I just didn't know. So this idea of creating a server, again, it's a very selfish endeavor. It was always, it's very easy to kind of look at the things I've done for the community of Urian and say it was all from the goodness of my heart. But the truth is, I needed more human minds to work together as a hive to give me all the information so I could sort of synthesize it and then crush them.
Mhm.
Like it was all my master plan. But it's been a joy, and it's super international. The Chileans are my favorite people on planet Earth. I gotta give a shout out to the Chileans. All you guys have taken Third Strike to such a high level, considering like you're such an isolated scene. If you guys throw on a random Chilean Third Strike video, it really looks like it's not Japan, and we're not Japan either, but the level is just as high as any other kind of second tier international scene. Like these guys are fucking legit, and they have a lot of passion, and they're very good, kind people. And everyone I've met who's Chilean has been super sweet to me. And to have the international community and just to feel like even though I am dead, I still live. Like when Resolve was playing in Jazzy, like Resolve is his own man, but like I fucking built that dude. So you know, like I love him, and I'm never gonna play him again. If anybody I'm never gonna play, it's absolutely Resolve number one. What are you
Yeah, yeah,
fucking
yeah.
crazy? That kid's insane.
He's hard. He's very difficult.
He's insane. But yeah, it's just amazing to plant all the seeds and then to watch them get watered and then to eat the fruit of all the other people too. It's like I'm also eating all your fruit, motherfucker. So you can have some of my old rotten fruit tech from 4 years ago that's irrelevant now. But yeah, I mean, I love the community for the most part. It's changed a lot in the time that I've been around, and it's very kind of young. And I'm an old guy who's like, I don't fucking play Smash Brothers. What is this stupid? So like, I feel like old man yelling at the cloud in some ways. So this idea of going to a tournament that is filled with 17 to 22-year-old kids. I'm kind of done with that. Like Jazzy 3, Jazzy 1 and Jazzy 2. Jazzy 1 was me like meeting everybody.
Sure.
Jazzy 2 was me being part of the community. It's just another player that is respected, and these are my buddies, and I
Yeah.
played you all for some of you have played you for 15, 20 years. Jazzy 3 was like, who is that guy? Who's that guy?
Yeah, there's a lot of new faces.
And like,
yeah.
there's a lot of new faces, and the problem was, I go, who's that guy? And then he'd play me, and I go, he's pretty fucking good. I should probably change my urine color the next time so no one knows it's me. So like that community is wonderful, but I don't really feel like I'm part of it in the way that I was at one point because it has changed so dramatically. And like I don't really want to put myself out there in the same way, get on airplanes, fly, and compete, because like a lot of the times I would show up to events and I'm like, I think NEC, this jacket that I won, I show up and I'm like, I don't fucking, these are not my boys. I don't know these dudes. And thankfully my boys weren't there. I wouldn't have won the tournament. But the social aspect to me, when it was at its peak, when I was in New York and I was playing with my guys and we were there every week, unbelievably electric to be able to have a scene. And you guys in Texas have, I would say, the best scene in the United States, and cherish it. And it will likely change, but as long as you're kind of consistent, and like Ray, you've got the cabs in your place, so like the scene very much like lives through you. But when it leaves and it changes in New York, most of us are old, and a lot of us, show up for 6 months and disappear for 6 months and come back for 2 months and leave for 5 years. So the social element of it, especially after COVID, I'm online. I got my friends. I got Lance. I got Kang. I got Bessels. I got Frankie and stuff. But I just the social thing wasn't pulling me enough to justify getting on airplanes. And I have a human child as well, so
Yeah.
that's also been like a
Pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been tough.
Yeah, how's fatherhood? How's fatherhood going? Let's kind of get into that.
It's actually it's been pretty chill. So I'm 34 and my life is stable, and I made the conscious decision to have a child with a woman that I love, who I'm married to. And it's difficult, but it's right on schedule. Like if I was 24 and I had a kid with a chick that had big tits that was super hot and like, oh fuck, that would have been horrible. It would have been horrible. It would have ruined my life. But in a stable, committed relationship with a person that you love who has health insurance, like it's pretty great. I mean, to watch him grow, he's a big boy. He's in like the 95th percentile in terms of length. So like he's a big, tall kid. He's, his name is James, and he's been an absolute bundle of joy. And, I don't want him to ever come to the basement.
Go down that road again.
He's got downstairs. He can't play this shit.
What's down in the basement? You can't go down to the basement.
Yeah, I got this basement set up. So I got my cabs here. Got my Third Strike here. I'll give you the little tour. And then over here I got the Third Strike posters. I got this poster over here. My boy Zeebs.
Yeah.
The Urian versus the World art. I got the car from the Street Fighter 2. It's for sale. I love that picture. And then over here I got all my medals and all my Jazzy shit.
Nice.
Got all my golf stuff, my hole in one. And then I got my arcade carpet as well.
Oh, you got a Boston? You got a Boston
Yeah,
Terrier?
and I got Penny.
Oh my god, I am a Boston Terrier owner, so.
Oh, no way.
Yep. 12 years old,
Yeah,
Reggie.
this is Penny.
It's my boy.
Oh, so sweet. Penny's 7. She's a good girl. She's the best. And she's been very nice to my kid. That was like a big concern. But she's been sweet. We love Penny. I got my Bob Ross picture. I got my fat head of my dog.
Hell yeah. I have so much artwork of my dog just hanging up around the house.
I got some more random Third Strike shit over here, like I don't even know. Those were like the, I guess, promotional materials, and then this stick, which I ended up having to totally gut. So like, it's all. Oh, I put the thing back on, but it's broken. That's keyboard's a piece of shit. But look, I don't even have a start button because I had to take the start button out for the cabs. It's like I didn't have a start button because like who the fuck has a random start button? And then Cedric sent me this. This is fucking sick. It's actual wood. And then I got this off like Etsy or something. It lights up. It's kind of cool.
Oh, that is cool.
But this is my little basement. I work out of here, and no one's ever allowed to come. None of you are ever. If you're in town, you're like, oh, no, I'll message. No, you're not welcome. I'm not playing you in Third Strike. If you want to come and play on my Mr. Cade,
like Chrono Trigger.
I have like, I don't even know, thousands of games. I've been playing Donkey Kong Country the way it was intended on an Astro City. I'm going to be playing Chrono Trigger for the first time. I'm very excited about that. And I got into the old Metal Slug games. I got, so many different. These cabs finally. Let me tell you the story about these cabs. These fucking things, they basically ruined my life. So they took 19 months to come. I bought them at a time, peak Third Strike. Jazzy 2, I'm so excited. I'm going to get cabs. I already had the board. I've been playing on Super Gun on a CRT, but I'm going to get cabs. And I'm going to show up to Jazzy 4 through 20, and I'm going to be the only guy who's at home grinding on his cabs. By the time they arrived, I go, Third Strike? What the fuck is that? Oh, yeah. I don't play that stupid shit anymore. But now I have these 2 monster cabs that are completely destroyed. They smell like garbage. They are covered in grime. They had been sitting in a storage container on the back of a fucking freight barge or something for almost 2 full years. I wish they had sunk. When they came to the house, I was like, I thought you had sunk into the Pacific Ocean and I was going to get my money back. So they come and they sit upstairs because they don't fit in my basement.
Yeah.
They don't fit. I never thought to measure. I never thought to like figure out, do these things actually get down the stairs? They sit upstairs in my living room for like 2 months, totally unplayable, totally unusable. And my wife's patience is wearing thin. So I reach out to Jose Cruz Link, who is an absolute angel. And he comes to my house and we spend 8 hours ripping these things apart. They break into 2 pieces. There's a fucking 150-pound monitor. I go in there with Simple Green and Crud Cutter. I'm in there. I'm getting all types of diseases. You know, there's like bugs and stuff from Cooperation Cup. You know, the time that they did it outside, or I think it was SBO. There's cockroaches. I'm cleaning it out. I finally get into the basement, and then I realize I only own 1 game, and it's that. and my wife doesn't play.
Yeah.
And I don't live in New York City. I live in New Jersey, and no one's coming out to play me. So they sit here, and I play arcade mode every 6 days, and I hate it, and it's no fun. And then Jose, my king, Jose Cruz, says, "Hey, you got to get a Mr. Cade." And this thing has taken my cabs from being like 2 essentially paperweights to being like the best part of my house. My wife and I, we've been playing Donkey Kong Country with infinite lives. We have the 2 setups. She's Diddy and I'm Donkey. And we just go and we can't lose. But we also can't beat the game because it's so hard. But, to have just endless arcade games, it's been super fun to get into the kind of basics of how these things operate. Ray is also an arcade owner. Lance was an arcade owner, and then he sold his cabs to Ray. So, like, we all know that these things are very challenging, but to just have a basic understanding of how they function has been fun. And I learned a lot of that just playing in the arcades at next level. The thing breaks and Henry's upstairs, and I got to it's unplugged. But don't recommend it. Very much a extremely expensive hobby, but
Yeah.
the way I look at it is if I break down all the money I ever made in Third Strike, it's probably just about at the level where I could theoretically say I bought
Justify
these
it.
with tournament winnings.
Yeah.
But the reality is I spent all that tournament winnings on stupid OnlyFans models, I'm sure. So, I didn't realize you can just go on Reddit and find them all. You don't have to pay for the OnlyFans.
Oh, Yuki showed me
Hit
that.
me up if you don't know. Yeah. If anybody needs to know, just DM me and I'll send you the links. I got you. It's not Reddit's kind of falling apart, but I can get you the whatever you want. I got you. It's gonna be price of course, but I can get you what you need.
All right, Dan. So we're at that time of the night where we ask you some questions. So just some questions in it off. So, how did you go about prepping for a tournament? Like, what would be your mindset coming in? Did you watch like match footage? Did you study like the players you're going against? Like, how did you prep for those?
This is a great question. It's almost like I asked you to ask me it.
No.
So
Now I'll right to the part of the episode where we asked Dan the questions he asked us to ask him.
I don't know if that's okay. Maybe. Tournament preparation for me was pre-game, during, and after. So a lot of guys I would see show up. They have no idea who's in bracket. They have no idea who their first match is, and they go 0-2. And it's not that surprising. And I hope I'm your first match because I know exactly who you are. I know exactly what you play, and I know what you're going to do. And if I haven't already played you and you're a threat, I mean, I know everybody. Whether or not I know you personally, I know if your name, if you have a average level of skill in Third Strike, I've heard your name before, and I have kind of put you in a hierarchy of threat, not threat, big threat. So, like, I show up to a tournament, like Frosty, for instance, 88 people. I knew as many people as I could in that bracket, and I hadn't played all of them because the Chicago guys I just didn't know that well. But I had asked around, who's this guy play? Who's this? Who's actually a threat? And I would talk to guys who had more knowledge of the scene, and I knew, like Lance knew, it was me, Lance, and Big Nasty were the most threatening. And I had played Big Nasty, and of course I had played Lance. But there were a lot of landmines in that tournament, and that tournament was really interesting. And it's actually one of my favorite Third Strike tournaments in American history, not only because I won it, but also because it had a wide character variety.
Sure.
And it was a weirdo tournament. And like that's one of the coolest things about the Midwest. I don't think the Midwest gets the credit that it deserves, not necessarily because of like its skill level, because like its skill level is obviously not as high as New York, Texas, and LA, but their like desire to play their character. They don't have a lot of tier whores. they have their Ibukis, they have their Elenas, they have their weirdo characters. And I went into that tournament like needing to understand Dirt Master Elena. Like I had played Dirt Master for a long time online, but I'd never played as Elena. He had played all these other characters, and I had to learn, about the two Ibukis that were there. There was who are the Ibukis? There's the tall kid. What's his name?
Yogurt Brain.
In Chicago.
Yeah,
Yogurt Brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was before Yogurt Brain really popped. I knew of Yogurt Brain because he was winning locals and getting high placing. So I went in there knowing I have a huge Ibuki deficiency. I suck versus Ibuki. And I was watching Yogurt Brain before he became sort of like a well-known player. And I was like, this kid's actually good. So he concerned the hell out of me. So I had created a basic understanding of who's in the tournament. And then once I get there, so I show up to Frosty. Everyone has COVID. Nobody knows. Like everybody has COVID. So I'm walking around Frosty, and I'm constantly scoping out who showed up, who's actually here, who's playing in the casual setups, and I'm watching the casual games, and I'm just getting a feel for the vibe in the room. And then I sit down and I played Lance in casuals, and that was 100% like a strategy of like I'm going to, and I played 100% as hard as I could as a test to you, and like we went back and forth, and I wasn't able to like instill this fear in you as much as like I wanted to just fuck you up in casuals so that when you played me, the last thing you could think about was how I fucked you up in casuals. And I did one thing to Lance, which has gone viral on Twitter, where he tried to chip me out with lightning legs in the corner. I had no health, and I parried 23 legs in a row and then did EX Aegis and did an overhead, and I beat him and I popped off, and got a bunch of views on Twitter. But to me, that was like a win in the casual settings. So like we went back and forth, but I did that thing to Lance. So like Lance was the biggest threat. So I had kind of placed this parasite in his head. So that I'm constantly thinking about this stuff. And then we get to the tournament, and one thing that most tournament players don't do is figure out like what's the good setup. So this was a super gun tournament, and I knew that there was no good setup because it was my stick. But like the majority of tournaments I've played have been on cabs. And I can tell you as a cab owner, these may look the same. They are not the same.
Yeah.
They are not the same. These buttons and this stick and this monitor, and go and play like at next level. I would always play on every machine. There was 4 machines for the tournaments. I would play on every machine. I get a sense of every stick. I get a sense of every button, the monitor crispness, everything. And then I would stand next to the machine that I wanted to play on. I would never flip a coin unless you asked. There was no like, oh, what side do you want? Fuck you. I pick the side unless you have the balls to tell me otherwise. Always. And like there are certain character matchups like Urian versus Ken, where if you're player 1 or player 2, it actually changes the matchup.
Matters.
Because there's different. Yeah, it matters. And I don't know all of them, but there's more than a few matchups where your player 1 or player 2 actually changes what can occur in the match. So like I need to be player 1 when I'm playing against Ken. So I would always stand when Ahmed was coming up or Frankie was coming up. I would always stand. And, these guys are old school too. And the amount of coin flips that I've had with Ahmed, it's like he comes up to me and he goes, I want that side. And I go, fuck you, I want this side. And we coin flip, rock, paper, scissors. But that moment is like a recognition of like, you're a tournament player. I'm a tournament player. Like, we're not fooling around. This isn't like, oh, I'm up next. Oh, do you mind if I... No, I know where I'm standing. Unless you stop me, I'm taking that seat. Because that stick is bouncy and shit. And this stick feels just like my stick at home. Mm-hmm. So, like, I did that in Jazzy 1. I did that in Jazzy 2. I've done that in every tournament that I've played in. And, I joke about this with Lance. I've told him this a few times. But when Lance and I sat down to play Grand Finals at Frosty, there was a genuine exchange of like, hey, we fucking beat all the shitty players. Like, it's me and you, buddy. We're the champions. But what I was doing subconsciously, and it sounds manipulative, is I was calming Lance down. I was like, we're buddies, huh? Come on, chummy. And there's a great picture of us.
Yeah.
Deep inside me at that moment, I'm about to fucking kill Lance. And like, I love Lance. Lance is one of my favorite people. Lance, you probably are my favorite person in the third strike scene. But in that moment, because you are me, I've never met a man closer to me than me. You're just way better at hiding it. So
that's probably true.
But I softened him up, and the psychological warfare. Like if you watch UFC boxing, the shit talk and all this, Conor McGregor, the psychological warfare plays a huge role. if I can beat you in casuals before the tournament and I can do something nasty to you, you're not going to forget it. And like I noticed as I was getting more and more well known that when I would show up to tournaments, I was starting to get this kind of like, ooh, I got to play Steelhammer in the next round. And like I would leverage that, and I would absolutely fuck with people before matches and be like, okay, so who's up next? I walked into a tournament once and I go, who's getting second? Like just doing that type of stuff. And I would always do it with a smile and it would get a laugh. And I don't think that it was really coming from like a mean or malicious place, but it was me planting seeds to as many heads as that were open to it of I'm going to beat you. And like it didn't always pay dividends, and there's a lot of people that I would psych myself out because oh shit, Nika's here or Daisuke's here or Frankie's here, and you know sometimes my strategy doesn't work when my opponent is objectively stronger than me. But for all of the bottom feeders, I would drop the poison seeds, whether it be through them knowing me on YouTube or me playing casuals with them at some point, or me teaching them. A lot of the times I would teach these young players, and then they would try to play me in tournament. I was like, you're not gonna fight. I taught you how to fireball. Like you're not gonna beat me. So, and then the post game. So I really struggle with the post tournament. I have a very hard time watching me lose. A lot of guys get a tremendous amount of value out of it. And I think it is objectively the right thing to do is to watch your footage. And I don't like to lose, and I certainly don't like to lose twice. And I'm not going back and sitting there with the, frame by frame, figuring out why I lost. Like, I just couldn't do it. So I would watch myself win. Love to do that. Watch my tournament wins many times, and I would watch it and figure out what did I do right. So my ego definitely held me back from being able to grow as much as possible because I had a hard time stomaching like seeing myself get crushed. But watching your own footage is obviously a very good thing to do. So that's kind of like the pre, during, and after tournament strategy, and it did absolutely work. But the limitations of it are a lot of it comes from self-belief. Like at Jazzy 3, nobody in that room once that tournament started could beat me. And I really believed that in a way that I never, ever have before or will probably ever again. And that went so far. And I was able to convince myself of that because I had truly always thought that I always beat myself. Like when I lose, I've always joked to people like, you don't beat me, I beat myself. Like when I beat you, I beat you. When I lose, I lost. Like you didn't beat me, I lost. But I had really bought into that until I ran into Issei, and then I couldn't be. I'm not a liar. I can't lie to myself.
I remember after Frosty one time, I think we were playing on OE at the time, and like you qualified. I remember you sent me like a few pages of like, oh, now that I've qualified, I don't have to like worry about you. Here's everything you're doing wrong with your character. And like just gave me a list of breakdown of like all the shit I was doing wrong.
I've always I was really happy to hear that you and Lance had done this. So Lance and I go way back. Wax, we've played a lot online and we've met each other a few times offline. But the first time that I played you, I beat you. But there was something that you were doing that showed me like there's more than potential in this player. Like this guy is actually fucking dangerous. And I imagine you've continued to grow, but the last time we played, like, you're really good and super annoying to play against because what you do is you make me feel stupid. So you'll do something that is stupid. You should not do that shoulder, but you've done that shoulder, and it hit. So I am faced with this moment where who's the moron? Is it Wax? Undoubtedly, he's the moron. But also, I have to look in the mirror and go, I got hit by it, and I got hit by it 3 times in 2 rounds. So, like you have a stubbornness, but it's like you're also just cheap. You're a very cheap player.
Thank you.
That's something that no, it's honestly the highest compliment because I would have to imagine anybody who plays me would at least notice like I'm pretty fucking cheap. Like I'm not playing honestly. And Lance is one of the cheapest players I've played in my life. And I really believe that in order to get good at Third Strike or any fighting game, you have to like completely abandon a sense of like morality in terms of gameplay. Like you have to become a total, just a deviant. You have to do the dirtiest shit. And like you play Yun, and it's built right into the character if you know how to unlock it. But you unlock it with this patient, turtley, fucking shoulder, dash back, activate. Like, who has time for this, Wax? We're trying to play a video game. It has served you very well, and I think it will continue as you keep playing. But I was happy to hear that you were the guy that was with Lance. I don't remember the question, but
No.
No, you got it. You got the answer. Okay, you were talking a little bit about what you can't watch your own footage, but I do believe you watched like a ton of footage, right? Japanese players.
I think I watched all the footage. Really.
Like every Urian match ever played.
Pretty much. There's not a Urian match that's out there that I haven't at least seen the thumbnail of. Like, I believe that the only way to get good at a game like Third Strike or any ancient fighting game is to accept that it's pretty much figured out and it's just up to you to decode it. And you're not going to decode it in training mode or playing your friends. You're going to decode it by studying the people who have already figured it out. Like, the information's all out there, whether it's in guides and videos, combo, or it's really in the matches. Because the truth of the matter is I have not figured out Urian at the level that RB or RX or RKF or Ryu or Shinobu or any of the top Japanese players. I don't know the character that well. And what I'm doing is taking my brain and trying to figure out. I didn't figure any of this shit out. I just took it in and then put it together and packaged it. So, like, if you want to go to the source, the videos are out there. I didn't figure this out in the lab. I figured out a couple setups here and there. But the reality is I just found what was out there and packaged it and gave it to who's ever willing to go on my guide. You can go right to the videos and watch them yourself. And the way that different people watch the same footage is fascinating. I've become somewhat friendly with Cartola. Cartola is a Spanish Urian who I believe is probably the most impressive Urian outside of Japan, second really only to Resolve. I think those two are operating at a level that really has not been seen outside of Japanese Third Strike for the Urian character. So watching Cartola play, watching Resolve play, and watching me play, we're all at a similar enough level, but we all play the character differently, and that's because we all have different minds. And like, Cartola has an extremely analytical mind. Like, Resolve is more free-flowing like I am. Like, I don't get the sense that Resolve's there crunching numbers. Like, Resolve is I believe you play from your heart, your head, or your balls. And like, I play from my fucking balls. I don't know frame data. I don't know anything. I just know that EX headbutt is going to hit if I do it right now. Cartola plays absolutely with his brain. Like, Yuki plays absolutely with his brain. And like, a lot of players play with a mix of them. I don't have a very big brain for Third Strike, but I have huge fucking nuts. And like, I will do the thing that I should do in that moment instinctually. I think guys like Cartola or guys like Yuki, sometimes they think themselves too much and they get frozen. And guys like me, I don't think enough and I do something really fucking stupid. So like, there's pros and cons to the different styles. But, watching a piece of footage, like Cartola and I were sending footage back with each other. And he said, like, I sent him one of my commentaries on, the Urian Yun matchup or something. And he was watching it and he was basically like, I didn't look at it like that before. And I know that if he had a commentary on that same sequence, that he would present something to me that I absolutely would have never considered. Like the distance, the pixels. And he has a script where he's able to take Third Strike and get a sense of what button wins in certain interactions based entirely off of an algorithm where it's like, Urian crouch medium kick at 120 pixels out compared to Yun's crouch medium kick. Who wins? Well, 121 pixels. Who wins? 122 pixels. Who wins? 123 pixels. And then he plays it all out using a computer script. And he can. I don't know how to do that. I just know how to go. The last time I played Yun, crouch medium kick was pretty good at like kind of this range. Crouch medium kick. So like, there's different ways to look at it, but you're never going to learn this game if you don't dive head first into footage. For years of my life, Third Strike was being played on my phone or on my computer in a very passive way. I wasn't always there like, oh my God, what's RX? It was my entertainment. It was my show. I watched the new stuff, the old stuff. I love the history and the lore. And I just consumed it the way that normal people consume TV or whatever. But it was sort of absorbed. If you watch somebody play Third Strike at a high level long enough, you'll start to figure out what it looks like, and then you can emulate it, and then eventually you can do it yourself. but you got to watch.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense to me. I mean, I've always thought of it in terms of like, okay, you can learn, right? For instance, we could say like Kang has never watched a day of footage in his life. You can learn this game just through sheer brute forcing, just playing online constantly. If you're thinking it through, if you're always trying to actively learn, you can just learn the game that way. But watching footage of like the top players is just a cheat code. They've already done everything you've done 10 years ago, right? So that's going to help you catch up, and I think that's been a big advantage. We talked about how the new players have so much more available to them compared to when we did, and what we had even when I started was way more than like what people had
Previously.
10 years before me, right? Like people tell me stories of like, oh, in the old days, there was like, yeah, we would get a VHS tape of like this one Japanese tournament, and that's where we learned everything. And then by the time I was in the community, now we're on Japanese parts. Now like you can go watch the Shen. You can like go on like Nico Video to watch like tournaments in East versus West. And now like everything, right? You can just watch everything. And these new players,
you can watch the streams too, like RB at Eno's house, just playing endless casuals. I would sit there and I would just watch live.
Yeah.
And I don't speak Japanese, and if you do, that's an enormous leg up in a game like this. If you can communicate directly, I had a question to Yuki. Yuki is like, I think Yuki is probably the most talented player I've ever, really played. Like I've played Issei and all that, but Yuki's a special dude, and his brain is so unbelievably porous. It just takes in information, and I don't know how he does it, but he just structures it, and he just knows how to pull it out. And I asked him a question about Urien, and if you've never played Yuki's Urien, I know you both have. It's fucking sick.
Yeah,
so
very strong. Very strong.
Yuki, it's super strong. And I asked him once, and he goes, I don't know the answer. Let me message RX. And he messages RX, and they have a rapport, and they know each other. And RX answered the question. And within 20 minutes, I went from not knowing the answer to getting the answer directly from RX. And I had to go through Yuki to do that. And when Yuki stayed with me during Jazzy 1, he crashed on my couch. And at that time, there was a guide written by RX that was starting to be talked about. Sugiyama, the famous Necro player, had posted on Twitter that he had found PDF files for an old RX Urien guide and an old guide that he himself had written for Necro, and they were both in Japanese. So what I did is I went to Google Translate, and I don't know Sugiyama, I never met him, and I sent him a message in broken Japanese saying like, hey, I would really like to get my hands on that RX guide. Could you do that for me? And it took like 4 days, and I felt like very much like I was trying to connect with aliens or something. I was like, I had gotten the runes or something. I had figured the Japanese runes, and I had sent it out to this other part of the world. I'd never been to Japan. And it comes back, and now I have like a 40-page Japanese document of Urien written by RX himself, and I can't read a fucking word of it. And you put it into Google Translate, and none of it makes sense. Because it's like Japanese third strike terms are not what they appear to be. It's not like crouching middle kick or whatever. It's like they have full terms for their moves that Google Translate does not know. But Yuki stayed with me, and Yuki went through it with me and translated what was useful. And we were able to together figure out this one specific Hugo combo in the corner. It's like a very strange combo that we had both seen for years but didn't know how to really do consistently. It felt random, but RX had written in his guide how to do it, and it was just this cool moment of like, Yuki, I connect with Sugiyama, Sugiyama sends this thing across the world, I can't read it, Yuki's on my couch, Yuki can read it, and we're standing there with the CRT, and we're trying to figure it out, and that type of stuff, it's like crack. It's so much fun to be able to have that moment of like, oh, that's how that works, and to like get it from the source. It's just, super fun moments trying to learn this game, and I absolutely love the process of figuring things out in life in general. And Third Strike is just a never-ending series of problems that do have solutions if you can find them.
So
questions that I ask you.
James actually had a really good question. So he put it in the chat. So do you feel like not learning other characters was a mistake? A lot of top players seem to have more understanding that stems from experience using parts of most of the cast. I think if you played more characters, you may have been the best American of all time. Please come back. So what do you think of that?
Which James is this? This can't be Big Game. James,
this is
right?
Big Game James. Yeah.
The Big Game himself?
Yep.
Damn. have a lot of respect for Big Game James. The first time that I saw him play was on a random B-Trans stream. So at some point a few years ago, B-Tran was like recording footage from behind a cab, which is my favorite type of footage.
Same.
Sure.
When it's just a
Same.
cam behind a cab. Way cooler than like the HD, whatever. But I had never heard of Big Game James. I had heard of Red Venom. So I knew Red Venom, Oro,
Sure.
and I think he had a Necro as well, but his Oro was fucking sick. But I had never heard of Big Game James, and he was going back and forth with 5-star. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Who's this guy? And I asked B-Tran, and he gave me the whole lore of it. I don't think I've ever played James. But to answer his question, James, I can play every single character in the game, and I've tried to learn every single character in the game. I suck at Third Strike. This is not like I didn't try. I've been playing this game for a long fucking time. I know I could do all the Necro thing. I could do all the... I can't play any character but Urian at a level that competes with people who are above like B rank. I try. My Ryu is my second best character. He's shit. And my Q is actually fucking nice, but not more than 2 games. After 2 games, you realize that I just literally jump in and do roundhouse, and then I just hope you don't block the medium kick into dash punch. And I forget which command grab to do. But I've played every character. I just don't have the ability to turn them into viable competitive characters. I wish I did.
What do you think you're lacking that prevents you from, like, is this a question of like, okay, you have a lot of Urian skill, but you don't have great third strike skill, or is it like no other character clicks with you? Like, what's the issue?
I feel like I don't like losing, and in order to learn a character, you need to lose. And I found the path of least resistance with Urian. I won the most when I played him, so I just kept playing him. And like I would play other characters for fun, or I would play characters to try to test myself or just to see. But the thing that I'm probably lacking the most is like an ability to just stomach the fact that like this is going to be a long night, and that this is part of like a larger plan to try to develop this character into something that's competitive. Once I got a taste of this works, everything else became secondary, and it's just a humility. I mean, I don't like to be second. Even the great irony is that I was second in the Jazzy finale, where I really felt like I won, but I don't. Which healed me in so many ways. If I lost but I won, that's never happened in my whole life. So like I think that was sort of the final healing of like you can win even when you lose.
Yeah, I remember you and I, we would both hop on Fight Adults, right? Because we did, and we would play like 3 games maybe of alt versus alt, and like 3 games, and you'd be like, okay, we're playing Urian Shun now, right?
Yeah, because you're really good at third strike. You can play people. Lance, I feel for you. I had this conversation with Yuki once. Ray, I imagine you can relate to this. When you play a top tier, and I played Yun for a long time, there's always a voice. It was in my head. Yuki expressed it. It's in his head. I imagine it's in your heads. There's this voice that says it's only because of your character. And it is. I want you to know that. It is. 100% is. Both of you playing average characters are average players. I, on the other hand, play Urian, a bottom tier character, and I'm fucking sick. So what happened to me and what happened with a lot of other guys is that voice starts to creep in, and then you try to play other characters to prove. And like Lance did a damn good job of it. If you think that Lance can only play Chun, you are very mistaken. Lance can play every broken character. He can't play anybody who isn't broken. But he's got a godlike Makoto. He's got a super sick Ken. He's got a great Chun. He's got a great Yang. There's a drop off.
Yeah.
There's a drop off. Your Yun is somewhat shit, but it still wins.
Yeah.
Your Alex is actually very good, and people.
No, let's not. No, we can't do that.
I like his Alex.
I did not pay Dan to say any of this, just in case anyone's wondering.
Oh my god, we can't talk about Lance Alex. It's so trash.
All right. Okay, so and I think we kind of touched on this one already, but we can go over it again real quick. So the idea of like playing to win versus just playing, right? And I think for you, like you're always playing to win. It sounds like that's kind of the sense I've gotten so far.
It's the only way I know how to play, and I don't recommend it if your intention is to have fun. If your intention is to explore this really amazing game engine and test yourself. But if you want to be godlike at this game, which was always my intention, and I never really got to it. You have to understand that the goal is to win. It is not to have fun. It is not to express yourself. It is to crush. That's how I really believe. If you have a focus of being the best and winning the tournament, there has to be at least this switch inside you. And I've worked with a lot of young players, and some of them have that killer instinct, and others of them don't. And like I think there is a natural competitive part of the male mind. A lot of this is masculinity. Like there's a part of you when you're facing another guy, whether it's in an arm wrestling match or it's ping pong or it's third strike, that does not want to lose. And like that part of you for competitive video games has to be honed, and you have to learn how to channel it. And you know, it's a growing process. And when I was a kid, I absolutely broke controllers and I fucking raged and I was a little fucking prick. And you know what tends to happen is if you play that long enough, the anger just turns into sadness. But it's like you can't find the anger anymore. It's just dark. But you have to put yourself out there in a way that gives you an opportunity to actually win. And that requires a risk. And my least favorite players are the ones who sandbag, are the ones that play side characters because they're afraid of losing with their main, who, you know, go into tournaments thinking like, oh, we're just here to have a good time. Are we? I'm not. I'm here to kill you. So, like, if you don't want to match that energy, I'm going to kill you. Mm-hmm. So, like, you better find that inside you. And, dude, guys like fucking Ryan, guys like Nika, guys like Frankie, guys like Mutant. I'm trying to think of these, you know, Exodus has it in him, but he doesn't do it much. But he has it in him deep. If you're pushing him, he'll push back hard. Like, there is a fire in a lot of the top players that is scary. Ahmed is a fucking lion. Like, if you have Ahmed cornered, whether it be in the game or in real life, he is not going down without trying to kill you. And, like, you can feel that in the match. And, like, Ahmed is the only player I've ever played where his heart is scary to me. Where it's like, this guy will not die. And then he guest parries and then he dies. But, you know, for the most part, it's scary until you remember, no, you're playing Ahmed. Just let him be fucking crazy. And then he hits a Shoryu out of nowhere and your whole life flashes before your eyes. But there has to be fangs. You have to have the fucking canines to kill if you want to kill. If you want to just have fun and go to training mode and hit your combos and get a B rank on Fightcade, have at it. And the game can absolutely be played that way. It doesn't need to be played competitively. I actually don't think that it's a great competitive game. I don't know if you guys have remembered, but it's super fucking imbalanced. It's like super imbalanced. But if you want to pretend that it's worth pursuing competitively, you have to have the mindset to go for it. And by doing that, you put yourself out there. And, you know, me sitting in the kitchen after Jazzy won, head in my hands fucking broken, is because I put myself out there. Mm-hmm. And like me doing well in Jazzy 3 is because I put myself out there, but was able to like recognize that at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Like there's a balance to it. If you push it too far, you'll burn out and you won't be able to take any enjoyment in your victories. Like if you could just find like this balance, if it's just a fucking game at the end of the day, and these are people that you actually enjoy spending your time with, and it's a sick way to express yourself, but also like, I'm going to fucking murder you. I think there's a combo that could be useful for longevity and success.
Yeah, I think so something that I've kind of observed in some people, right, is like I think we all start super competitive, and I don't think that ever truly goes away, like everything you just described, right? Like that's always part of your makeup as a player. I feel like a lot of the players who have lasted a long time just like love the game on a pure level, right? It's not just about winning. Like Kang just enjoys playing, you know.
Just loves it.
Yeah.
Nika never makes an excuse when he loses.
Yeah.
Always gives respect when he wins. Nika to me is the purest form of third strike because he is so good. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he will shake your hand if you do something sick, and he'll tell you that guy is incapable of being sour. And I imagine he has those feelings, but he's been able to see the bigger picture. And like, you know, I did a great thing building the Third Strike Urian community, but it was always from this kind of like twisted, distorted place of self-service. When Nika built like the Third Strike community in New York, he really brought it out of the ashes. It was like a phoenix rising. Like it was dead. And he built the Ranbats and all the videos. And I don't think there was 1% of him that was doing it for the reasons that I was. He just genuinely loves the game and wants to give back. But Nika is a fucking savage. When you play him, in a competitive setting, you think you're trying to kill him. He is coming for your head. And like his balance. Same with Ryan. So like Ryan, when you lose to Ryan, he takes your face and he mushes it in dirt, and he fucking steps on your head. And I always respected that about him. And it doesn't come on the end of it. So Ryan's a little bit more of he's a sicko when it comes to killing people. The way Ryan's fucking higher level than me, and I have the most respect for that because the way Ryan taught me to play. Ryan very, very rarely told me anything. He never said do this, do that. He showed me through just suffering. And like Frankie is actually my favorite of this mix because Frankie can play both sides perfectly. Frankie can go and sit at the cab and play Oro against all the best players in New York and win and lose and win and lose and walk off and smile and have a great time. But then the tournament starts and it's like this switch where he becomes a completely different version. I don't have the switch. I only have the kill. And I really do envy these guys like Holdat, Frankie, and Nika. These are the guys I know the best because they're New York. I imagine the LA guys have similar and the Texas guys. But to be able to find the balance, to enjoy the game while trying to win, it's very difficult. And it hurts a lot to lose. But at the end of the day, like, doesn't really matter, obviously. Like, this isn't one of those things of like, it doesn't matter. It's a fucking Dreamcast game that nobody plays. Nobody cares about this. But it matters so much. Mm-hmm. But what really matters is, it's very cheesy, is the connections that you have with the other people and to be able to share that moment of like, I've put my life into this, you've put your life into this. We have all the lights and we're pretending that this means something. Let's see what happens. And at the end of it, maybe we'll be better versions of ourselves. Like Third Strike teaches life lessons, man. Like you have to really learn how to lose in order to get good at this game. When I lost the Issei, I was telling myself that he has probably lost more games than I've ever played. Like realistically. And he was losing games to the best players in the world. And he's been doing it for longer than me. And he's been doing it like consistently. You want to lose so much that like you got to get good at some point, just playing and playing and playing. I don't know. I'm getting tired. This jacket's actually quite warm.
All right.
Do we have any more brain busters?
What do you think, Lance?
Let's we can just go ahead to so there's a few questions from the chat we can go over, and we'll just hit you with the rapid fire questions at the end, and we'll call it a podcast. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
Okay. So next question: what would be your biggest advice for someone who feels like they're at a plateau at Third Strike? Me personally, the scene I am in right now isn't the most active that it has been, and I am not in a situation where I can play online in an optimized form because I have wireless and a bad monitor. I've heard some answers from a lot of different people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
An interesting question. So I hit many, many plateaus. I was at the same level for large periods of time. And a lot of that came down to me playing the same way, doing the same thing, expecting different results. In order to grow, you have to take a different outlook on the problem because obviously the same solution has been resulting in that sort of stagnation. So how you change is very much up to you, but something has to change. I don't suggest a character change. I think a lot of people do that, and they end up kind of shooting themselves in the foot because they give up all of the growth that they've had with their main, and they think it's going to be a secret with this other character, and then you get frustrated, and you go back, and you run. So just look at something differently. If you don't watch a lot of footage, watch a lot of footage. If you don't go to training mode, go to training mode. If you play very offensively, play very defensively. Like, flip the script on the way that you look at Third Strike in a super extreme way, and see if that kind of helps you find some sort of equilibrium. This game is so complicated there are areas of it that nobody fully understands. Like even the best players are really good at certain aspects of it, but other areas they're deficient. But there's never like the plateau is very much just in your mind. You have not reached your skill ceiling. There's always an opportunity for you to get better, but you won't get better unless you do something differently. What that is very much up to you, but it has to occur because all of us know players who've been the exact same level for 15 years, and it's just because they're not willing to expand. They're not willing to put themselves out there and try something new. They're comfortable with what they are, and being limited in terms of your opponents is a major problem to not be able to compete. But Yuki played in Hawaii against the CPU and built a huge percentage of his skill set completely isolated. So like you can do it. Most of my growth came from training mode. I've played endless games for over 10 years on various online platforms, and I reached a pretty solid level. It wasn't until I integrated training mode on an obsessive level that I really skyrocketed because my confidence grew knowing that each situation I find myself in, I probably know the route that I should take, where previously I was just sort of figuring it out on the fly. So maybe throw yourself into training mode, maybe throw yourself into match videos, but throw yourself into something different.
Done. Good answer.
Ray, what do you think about that? What do you think about overcoming plateaus?
It's hard. It's hard for me to do specifically. I lose to Lance a lot. I don't want to lose to Lance ever again.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
get used to it, buddy.
That's what I'm working on. But I do need to. Yeah, that answer makes a lot of sense to me because I'm very much not like a training mode guy, and I've very much gotten. I don't watch.
You play young.
I don't
play young.
I'm not a training mode guy. I don't. You can ask anyone. I do not boot up training mode ever. Like
That's why there's 2 jackets in this room.
No, I'm just not a training mode guy. I need to get into that.
Lance isn't a training mode. Lance doesn't play training mode either.
And then
Yeah, I used to, like, early in my career, I was in training mode constantly working on hit confirms, or I would sit there in training mode and I would just like record the CPU just doing like Ken low medium kick, walking back and forth, whiffing over and over, and I would just spend like hours just interacting, like, okay, oh, at this range, like, what you described, it's like, oh, Cartola knows, like, oh, at this pixel, like, I did not have it that specific, but like on an instinctual level I kind of did, where I was like, okay, I know at every range, like, okay, if he whiffs low medium kick right here, and then my low medium kick at this range will like counter poke his foot, right? Like that's a big thing in like Chun-Li, for example, is like there's a specific spacing where when Urian hits low medium kick, Chun-Li hits low medium kick and like catches his toe and supers. And I practiced like that shit for hours. But that was when I was living in Alaska. It was before I was married. So once I moved down to Texas and I was married, like things changed. I didn't really play training mode for like the last few years. So there, I think even it kind of if you can find something about training mode, even if it's not combo practice, because for me combo practice is really boring. That's why I'll never be a good Urian or Yun. I'm just like, I'm not interested in.
Well, you play Chun. I mean,
yeah, like Chun-Li and Ken, that's okay, right? And you can kind of do that with Makoto, But yeah, like for me, that's really boring. But that was really interesting. As far as
actually it's a cool answer because in my experience, most top players, 5-star is not going home booting up fucking training mode. But you would be a fool to think at his prime when he was like really thirsty for third strike to think that he wasn't somewhere in a fucking training mode practicing car short use for hours. Like he's just not there anymore. And like the last year or so of me playing third strike, I was doing a bunch of other shit. Mm-hmm. But you have to, at some point in your third strike career, pour yourself into the game engine, into the mechanics, into just figuring out each scenario to the best of your ability, mid-screen combos, corner combos, and to drill them into your hands. Because this idea that you're going to learn it on the fly, yeah, you will, but you won't polish it. You won't be so goddamn efficient at it that you will, you'll hit it at the highest level at the most pressure.
Yep. All right, one more question, and then we'll get into the rapid fire one. So this one's from Max, actually a local Makoto player here, who hasn't been playing too long.
Oh, cool.
How do you get over certain players that are big mental blocks for you? You were talking about Ahmed earlier and how he was torturing you. And I was wondering on what process you used in getting over that.
Well, I can tell you what I did, and I can tell you what's probably the better move. What I did was form deep-seated resentment and anger and frustration and hatred. And it fueled me, but it also burned me up, and I don't think that it was a particularly useful long-term strategy. I think what's probably most useful is to turn him or her or whoever they are into a mentor or someone that you can learn from. So if you sit down at the cab and somebody beats you, you have two options. You can say GG and leave, or you can ask them how they beat you. You can sit and watch them play. You can pick their mind. You can get their perspective. And you'll learn much faster if you open up to the potential that this other person is, one, better than you, because they probably are. If they're your demon, they're probably better than you. And Ahmed was absolutely better than me in many of the sets that we played. He wasn't maybe more knowledgeable than me or more technically skilled than me, but he had some sort of kind of competitive fire that I wasn't able to light. I was playing scared. He was playing confident. So to just kind of learn, what does this person know that's being used against me, and to kind of create an ally rather than an enemy, and then kill them once you're better than them. I've done that many times where you like, how did you beat me? Oh my God, little old me. I'm just Little Red Riding Hood. And then I practice and I figure out their stupid character, and then we play and they never beat me again. And then I go, who are you? Bye. Fuck you. Like, you can do that for sure.
Awesome.
But the idea of having 100 teachers rather than 100 rivals. Rivals are useful to a point, but teachers are much more effective. If you have 100 rivals, you're not going to grow as fast as if you had 100 teachers. And every rival can be turned into a teacher. Like, Ahmed was never going to be my teacher in terms of like, hey, this is how I'm beating you, because he's a fucking prick. And I love him, but he's a prick. He was never going to be like, oh, come on, buddy, you played well. But he taught me through the pain, the same pain that Ryan taught me through, the same pain that Frankie taught me through, and Daisuke and Nika. Some guys are going to lay, like, you ask me, I'll fucking tell you, like, straight up, this is what I believe that you're doing wrong. I'm somewhat of a rarity. A lot of people are not going to tell you, but they'll tell you through the game, and you can learn the lessons if you're willing to see them.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to hit some. So we're just going to go to the rapid fire section. I'm going to keep the questions and answers short. There's a couple more questions from the chat, so I'm just going to include them in the rapid fire. And then
Cool.
we'll call it a night. Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of Third Strike or video games?
Yeah, for sure. So I play golf. I'm like a 3 handicap.
Oh shit.
You don't play golf.
What does that mean?
Pretty
Explain
good.
that to me.
So the handicap system is basically compared to par. So like a par 72 course, a handicap is basically what you would shoot relative to par. So like my average is not 75. The way that the handicap system works is on my best days, I would shoot within 3 shots of par.
Okay.
So I played competitively in high school. I had a lot of the same struggles I have with Third Strike. Golf is a much bigger game than Third Strike, and there are many, many millions of people who play it at a much, much higher level than me. And it was frustrating, and I got very bitter with the game. It's extremely taxing mentally. It's really a soul-bearing experience to go out there and spend 5 hours in the fucking, in a field with a stupid stick and not hit the ball the way you want to. And I quit, and I came back, and I have a better perspective on it now, but I still struggle. And I would say golf would be my number one hobby. Outside of that, not much comes to mind. No, I would say golf. Third Strike kind of was my thing until it wasn't, and now I've struggled to find other. I play a lot of other games. I'm big on Baldur's Gate right now. Act 3 is terrible. Dark Souls games. Love the From Software games. Suck at them, but played them all obsessively. But yeah, games, golf. Fucking my wife, basic shit.
Yeah, of course, of course. When it comes to improvement, what would you say about people who don't have a local scene using Fightcade? Think that's a good option?
So if you look back at my first guide, it was called You Are Not RX, the guide to the basic bitch you're in. I wrote at the end different kind of chunks. One of them was like, be cheesy, be as cheap as you can. One of them was don't play on Fightcade. And this was at a time when Fightcade was garbage. This was Fightcade 1.
Oh yeah.
It was not optimized. It was very much a poor representation of Third Strike. And the people who played on there, when you meet them offline, just didn't know. If you've never played on a cab, it ain't the same game as Fightcade 1. And it isn't the same game as Fightcade 2. But Fightcade 2 is a lot better.
Yep.
So not having an offline scene is absolutely, without question, going to make your journey harder, but it's not going to make it impossible. Almost all of the top players in the United States have had extensive online practice. The only exceptions would probably be at this point, what, 5-star?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
probably,
5-star on Pyro, I imagine. If you count Pyro as still playing, then that's probably it.
But when Pyro quit, it was like there really wasn't a great online option. Fightcade, the ease of access, the quality of the netcode, the super strong training mode, and if you get a decent enough monitor and you have a stick that has low input lag, when you come offline, you're going to notice that this game feels different. For many people, it feels slower. It feels like a little bit more kind of crispy. But 15, 20 games in, you can get the timings and it's salvageable. But if you're playing Fightcade 1, if you're playing HDTV, Xbox 15th Anniversary Edition, you're going to have a very hard time. But the best players in the country play online, so why not, take advantage of it? Where are you going to go fucking play? Even if you live in a scene, it's not like these scenes are 7 days a week. People are out there playing. We don't live in Tokyo. You can't just pop in. We would play once. I would have a secret session or something once a week, and we would have the big session on Friday, and that was a good week.
Yeah.
And that was 5-10 hours of gameplay. The majority of my games, probably 97% of the games I've ever played of Third Strike, have been online.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up for everyone. Ray, any thoughts on that?
No, yeah, that's a bit.
I covered it.
I used to be a big hater of online play, but it's
it sucks.
It's a
compared
necessary
to this,
evil, right? It's a necessary evil.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll ruin your day,
mainly
but
for matchup.
Yeah.
So I have an offline scene, or I did. I don't live in New York anymore, but we had 25 active players. They didn't play all the characters.
Yeah.
We didn't have a strong Elena. We didn't really have that many Makotos. We didn't really have any Ibukis outside of the secondary characters. And I was very fortunate to have good relationships with multi-character specialists Kang, Frankie, Nika. These guys, they can beat you with anybody. And, it's fun for them because it keeps it fresh, but it's super valuable. Most of my Elena experience is not against Elena mains. It's against Daisuke. It's against Frankie.
Right.
And those Elenas are fucking good. They don't maybe know all of the secrets and details, but they know the fundamentals and they're just great players. So, you don't necessarily need, an offline scene to get good, but the benefits of not using online, the benefits of not, of playing only offline, I think there's diminishing returns. At some point, you're actually hamstringing yourself because you're not testing your skills against the huge player base.
Yeah, well, not only that, too, it's certain characters, let's say, for example, a Dudley. Some Dudleys are, dart shot heavy. Some are, short heavy. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing against one Dudley that's just he's always going to go dart shot. Dart shot super. You get used to that. You get, So it's important to get not only the matchups, but just different types of players using the character a different way. So
especially with a game like this where, Lance is one of the best Chun-Lis in the country. So is Amir. Mm-hmm. They do not play the character the same at all.
Not even in
you
the same
could play all day with Amir, and then you go and play Lance, and you're like, what the fuck? Same as, I played a million games with Lance, and then I would go play, KO Fiend's Chun-Li or something. Mm-hmm. And it's what the fuck is this?
That is a very different Chun-Li.
What is this?
He's doing air spinning bird kicks. I'm like, what is this? Street Fighter hyper fighting? What is this shit?
Yeah.
So, play online. And also, who cares? You're probably never gonna win anything. So just I'm just kidding.
What else we got?
Use that as motivation.
Joyous asks, can you still do Yun combos on stick?
No, I can't. And I've never played Joyous, but Joyous is a name that people tell me this kid's legit.
Uh-huh.
And I'm so happy I never played Joyous. If I lose to a child, that hurts so much. I think this kid's in his early 20s or maybe even late teens.
I think he's teens. He's 16
is he the one who was 15 or 16 or something?
Yeah.
I don't think he's graduated yet. Let's just say that. So.
Joyous, let's put it this way. I could never do half the shit that you could do. And I never will. Take this game Run with it. This is the perfect person to tell this to. I really wanted to get this message out. Joyous, you're 15 to 17 years old. You're having a great time with Third Strike. You have a natural ability. You're probably very smart. You likely have a brain that is capable of doing something maybe meaningful or productive to society, or maybe you could, I don't know, fucking help someone.
Yeah.
So take that brain and have a damn good time with Third Strike. Come out, play in the Jazzy circuit, have fun. Go to the finale. Ask your mom for money. Hey, mom, can I get on an airplane? No, you can't. You're a child. Sit in your fucking room and do your homework. Play the game until the game stops giving to you, and take that energy and to put it into something useful. Put it into something that, I don't know, gives you a fucking dollar in your pocket, or a man or woman that you're sexually attracted to will fuck you. These things are useful. These things are good. It's good to win the tournament and hold the little plastic trophy, but it's a lot better to have a home, to have a meaningful relationship with a human being, and to be able to be a useful member of this planet. And Third Strike will hold you back from all of those things. So play, then at some point, stop playing.
All right.
I told this exact thing to Alan. Is Alan still playing Ibuki?
No,
No,
he's a
a
Chun
Chun-Li
player
player
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
He likes
fucking
winning
super
more than he
gross.
likes playing Ibuki.
Is he as good with Chun as he was with Ibuki?
I'd say at this
I think
point,
I think
his
it's better.
Chun-Li's
Yeah, I think it's
much
Chun-Li's
better.
better.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He just
I
crushed
told
Ray in a
Alan-
first to 5 recently. I taught him everything he knows.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Alan's one of those kids. The second I played him, I was like, "This kid's special."
Hmm.
There's special
He is
players out
special.
there. Joyce, I never played you. He's definitely special. But I've never played Joyce, but I would have to just assume that he has that natural gift. But that gift is a double-edged sword. It's a curse in a lot of ways, because you are good at this Third Strike thing. You could be good at other things, and things that would actually reap major benefits in your life if you just find what they are and do them. The Third Strike thing, I've done it. Fucking cool. It's fun. I mean, you don't have one of these, and you probably never will because they don't make them anymore. But there's other shit, and you're a child.
Yeah. I guess the lesson is in play Third Strike in moderation, right?
Yeah.
There's more to life than Third Strike.
Everything in moderation. Yeah.
That's the message for sure.
Last question for you. It's a two-parter here. So now that
Wait, what? We have more questions. More questions.
we have more questions.
Yeah, we have 3 more. We have 3
I
more.
got a second wind here. This is the
Okay,
last time
okay,
I've
okay.
talked to anybody about this.
Okay.
Okay. So who was your biggest rival while you were playing, and then what was your most satisfying tournament win?
So biggest rival would have to be Ahmed,
Amen.
like in terms of tournaments. But biggest kind of like lifelong rival would be B-Tran for sure.
Mhm.
Like B-Tran and I just, I mean, I want to remind him that I made him, and he wants to remind me that I'm fucking old and he's an actual monster. Like he's got that talent too. At some point you got to look in the mirror and say, do I have it? My father was a boxer. So he was an amateur boxer, and he won the Golden Gloves, which was like the big amateur tournament. He won it in 3 different states in the 1960s. He's 80 years old. And he went to the Olympic trials. And he fought in the Olympic trials, and he lost. Didn't make it to the Olympics team. And he, at that point, was maybe 24 years old, and he was objectively a very good boxer. The same way that I am objectively a very good Third Strike player. But his father said something to him that I imagine in the moment broke his heart, but ended up being very useful for the rest of his life. He looked at him and he told him, he goes, Al, my father's name is Al, you are a great fighter, but you are not a world champion. And it was like, fuck, he's right. And that was a moment for me that happened multiple times. I'm a very good Third Strike player. I am not a world champion. I'm not even a national champion. I couldn't even fucking beat that stupid Issei guy. But there has to be a moment of realization, and it can't happen too late or you've let your whole life pass you. The moment of realization of like, do you actually have it? And if you do, play Street Fighter 6. And like, if you really do, play fucking, I don't know, one of those MOBAs or whatever the money is in, the fucking Dota or something. Like, if you're a god gamer, and there's a few of you out there, at least make some money. I mean, when I was playing, there was no money. you could be a fucking millionaire and you're wasting your time playing this stupid shit. It's the best game of all time. But if you're actually like super sick at video games, like some of you weirdos are, make it worth something.
Good. All right. Don't play Third Strike. That's the lesson here. Okay, last two, and then we are good. What has Third Strike taught you about yourself, as not as a player, but as a person?
It has taught me that at the core, what I want is human connection, and that I put up walls. I think I want to win. I think I want to prove that I'm better than you. I think that, I want to be different, that I want to be special or above. But what it really taught me is that I want to just be a part of something. And, the best moments, my favorite moment in Third Strike is definitely not the Jazzy finale. It's probably just some random fucking moment hanging out with the guys, just chilling. Like, it really is. Those are way more fun. And it's hard to do that online, and it could very easily just become about the game. But, I made meaningful relationships with a lot of people, and, I'm not the best friend, truth be told. Like, I moved out of New York, and I got my wife, and I got my kid, and I'm very much an isolated fella. But, to be part of the New York scene, to be part of the national scene, and then to even kind of touch on being part of the worldwide scene, like having Japanese players message me and tweet and, tell me like, oh, that's a cool combo, and to just be part of something. So I would say that's what it's taught me, is that all of the walls I put up, all of the kind of lies I tell myself, the truth is I just want to be part of something, and Third Strike gave me that. And, it'll be very hard to replicate that in any other way. And that's why I haven't really left the scene. Like, I still am on Discord every day. I'm just not playing. And part of me, when I had my kid, I was like, I sent a message to the Discord and I hit at everybody, which I've never done before and will never do again. But I told them all, like, I'm done and I'm not coming back. And I'd always run that server by myself as just a straight dictator. And I gave mod status to like 4 of my favorite players, and then I couldn't leave. And like, I've been doing getting rid of TikTok, and I've been, I don't drink Diet Coke anymore. I drink Pellegrino, and I quit vaping, and I'm on Zins, and, I'm trying to fucking lose weight because I'm getting fat. And, I got this kid that's, looking at me every day, and I realized that like, I'm not living for myself anymore. I got to stay alive so I can give this kid a fucking decent life. And the truth is, like, it's the people in the arcades, it's the people in the Discords. That's really what this has always been about. And a lot of us, I can only speak for myself, but I would imagine a lot of you guys are like me, where you're kind of fucking off. Like, you are weird, or you got autism, or you got mental health issues, or you're a drug addict, or you're like a social weirdo, or you can't get laid, and you found this thing and you're good at this thing. And my argument is that that's just an indication that you could be good at something else, and that would likely manifest in a life worth living. And take it from someone who ran this experiment for the majority of his adult life. It's great. It ain't that fucking great.
Awesome. Okay, last question. Just leave us with any final thoughts you have.
Okay, my final thoughts would be play Third Strike. It's a good game.
Beautiful,
right.
beautiful.
All right. Thank you, Dan. This is a great interview. Thank you guys for tuning in. Ray, do you have anything else?
No, just thank you for coming on, Dan. Appreciate your time. When are we gonna play Third Strike?
Have me back at some point.
Yeah, for
Right,
sure,
we
for
will
sure.
Never play. You will never play. If you had ever threatened me or beaten me or like had a tournament win over me or maybe even one time question like the rankings between us, I would get you a first class ticket out here and you'd play on my cabs on the shitty side. But you're dead to me.
Oh my god.
You're buried. You're dead. I got the shovel out. Another yawn. Put it in the body bag. But I root for you, and I want you to start to really tap into the potential that you have to be a great player, because every time that you do something good in Third Strike, I know that I'm better than you, and I get
live vicariously. Yeah,
that's like with Lance. Like when I beat Lance at Frosty, I became Lance's biggest fan. Because then every time Lance does something sick, I'm like, yeah, I fucking beat that guy Frosty, so who gives a shit? I'm better than him, so it doesn't matter.
Oh man. Well,
I wish the best for everybody that I've ever beaten, and anybody who's beaten me, you should really quit. I mean, you're old. You're definitely in your 40s at this point.
all right. We'll go ahead and call it a podcast there, boys. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely want to have you on eventually. Maybe once the season starts, we can watch some tournament footage together or something
I'd
like
love
that.
to. Yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
we can do that for sure.
I'd love to be around. It's fun to talk about this stuff. You know, I don't play and I don't really think about it much. I do still watch. Like I was watching I think it's Kyushu. There was that tournament 3v3 last night. I was up late last night watching RB get smoked. I don't know. I think he won a couple games early in the night, but he got fucking smoked. Takomon or something. Takomion or something.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He was so good, dude. That SA1 Ryu was pure art. He lost to an Oro as well, but it was just an Oro. It was probably a sick Oro, but that fucking SA1 Ryu. SA1 Ryu is the most beautiful. It's just pure third strike. You lose to Dice K, you lost.
Yeah, no frills, no nothing. Just fundamentals, heart.
EX Fireball.
Yeah, let's do this again. We'll do it more with a focus on I don't know, something other than me and my life transition.
No, you're good, Dan. Thank you so much. All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and we appreciate it. We'll go ahead and end the podcast now. So.
And also, Keychain's Relento is nasty. Just had to throw that out there. Keychain Relento, nasty.
All right, later, guys.